All right, hello. We're live. We're playing Trophy Dark. Temple of the Sky is part of the Gauntlet Community's Open Gaming weekend. So this game is put on through the Gauntlet. There's some awesome folks who run a lot of independent story games, have a really cool play culture. So if you're watching this and are interested in this type of game, I highly recommend everyone check them out. It's at gauntlet-rpg.com. Just a couple things to review really quickly. We're playing Trophy Dark, which is a one-shot horror game. We've talked over the sort of tone of the game, where it's kind of a play-to-lose game. And we're going to go on the journey of these characters going into, or upwards rather, a dangerous place in search of treasure or other secrets maybe, and kind of enjoying their descent as things get worse for them. So the tone of the game, and we are using lines and veils, which the players have established. So we have that on our another tab. There's content that won't be in the game. If anything comes up that anyone's uncomfortable with, we're also using X cards, so we can always hit pause, change the content, just to make sure that we're all on the same page and enjoying the horror of the game. And that's part of the Gauntlet's policy. So going into the game, this is an incursion I wrote that's actually going to be in the trophy book, so I'm really excited about that. It's called Temple of the Sky. And I'm going to read the little intro paragraph, and then we'll introduce all the characters. So, a vast stone spire stretches from a valley in the forest floor to the clouds. No one knows where it came from. Is it a rock formation from a time before the forest grew? A colony built by tiny creatures long perished, or the limb of a dead god? It is undoubtedly ancient, a towering refuge to flora and fauna from predators roaming below. But it is also known to have been the site of a small monastery at one time, steps carved in the stone by diligent monks of a forgotten order. They climbed the span of the spire to be closer to the heavens and escape the distractions of the mundane world. Some say they learned the secrets of a long life from periods of extended fasting and visions granted to them by angels. Others say they kept priceless artifacts safe there, manuscripts of collected knowledge, which only survived in the vault of the sky. Other would-be treasure hunters have tried and failed to ascend the spire and enter the temple at its zenith. But you and your companions are wiser and better prepared. You have observed the landscape, reading the omens of beasts and weather. You have trained in the use of climbing tools for a careful ascent. Working together as a team, you are certain that the mysteries of the temple above will be known at last. Glory awaits to those who are truly brave enough to ascend. So the theme of this incursion is heavens. And let's start by going around from the bottom. We'll go Nima, Eliseo, and Vero. You can just introduce your character and tell us what they're about.
Okay, Nima is a pilgrim, and she's trying to atone for her past mistakes in her youth. She's probably around 30, late 20s, and she basically had some strong spiritual experiences, but in her youth she fell under the influence of a dark cult, and someone very close to her perished trying to free her from the cult, and so she carries a lot of guilt about that. And eventually she did, her eyes were kind of awakened to the reality, and so she did she did escape the cult, but is looking to atone for this. And so the kind of the spiritual impulses that set her on this whole course are still inside her.
Nice. And are there any, let's see, I'll just look at the sheet really quick as well. She's got a couple rituals, or no?
Just one.
Ritual. Cool. Yep. Excellent. I'm just getting the name here. Any other details about that cult? Any, what kind of maybe their main focus was or something associated with them?
Yes. Let's say they were under the influence of some dark malevolent force, And so I would say that they were, all right, not to, I don't want to, just like, maybe they were a very, outwardly, maybe a lot of people didn't like them, but the deeper you got into the cult, you just saw how bad they were. So kind of like a dark conspiracy. Yeah.
Mm. So even the rumors weren't quite as bad as the real thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. And then Eliseo.
So Eliseo is a soothsayer and a wayward hermit. So his goal is to learn the maddening wind song of the stone spire. So I'm kind of imagining Eliseo as having retreated from society, disappeared into the wilderness for the longest time, and he's tormented by these sounds that he hears that stop him from ever being able to meditate or ever be able to be still. And so he's traveling now. His ritual allows him to understand the memories of the stones, the trees, and the water. So he's been traveling towards the tower and kind of reading the land as he goes, looking to understand what this noise is that he's been hearing.
Cool. And has he been a hermit for like his whole life? Is there a point of time where he became a hermit?
Yes, I was wondering about that. He's maybe been driven into it by something in his past, though I'm not sure what that is just now. Mm-hmm. Something that made him kind of forego other people. So I suppose this quest is going to push him back into actually having to deal with folk.
Yeah. That's super interesting. Is there anything else about that? The wind song, is that a thing that he's very conscious of what that means, or is it just kind of like an impulse, like whatever he thinks that means?
I think maybe he wants peace over anything else. So I suppose we bit like Nima, just wanting to get rid of all these kind of negative feelings, but he wants things to be quiet and peaceful. But every time he does, he hears that sound. So he's looking to discover what the source of it is. Cool. I suppose as well, if it's a monastery, and there's a religious element to it, maybe he's got some connection to the order at the top of the spire.
Nice. Yeah. Might come back to that too. I like that. All right. And Vero.
Vero is a leech and an expelled apprentice. She dabbled a little too much in the sort of fringe sciences while she was worshipping a god of healing. And her skills have driven her to sort of amateur version of what she would have been trained as. And one of the rumors of the order that she used to be a part of was that they were descended from the monastery on the stone spire. And she has realized that she wants back into what she was driven out of. And she thinks that if she gets the manuscript, they'll welcome her with open arms and she will be a hero and everything will be fine.
Nice. That's really cool. So you said she was expelled for kind of experimenting a little bit, or?
Yes, I'm thinking a little more towards like the forensics side, or mucking around with corpses in unfortunate ways.
Right. Sure. Excellent. Lovely bunch of people just going on a mountain hike, really.
A picnic.
Yeah. Let's see, and just checking. So Vero has bind. Okay, so you each have one ritual. Cool. All right. So, kind of opening shot, we see these three figures walking into this valley of tall forest, kind of in the distance on either side. I'm thinking like a drier sort of pine forest. So there's dry brush and pine needles underfoot, kind of scrubland. And it's it's midday right now. The sun's overhead. It's kind of sun peeking through the clouds on and off, and you've all one way or another come to be working together. Because one thing's clear, this isn't something anyone would attempt on their own. This climbing this thing is dangerous. So you're all relying on each other's different skills and intuitions to kind of find the right way. Is there anything, to an observer from a distance, is there anything that they would notice about your characters that would kind of give away that you have rituals about you, that you've been a little bit changed by the magic that you've started using? If you don't have any immediate ideas, that's fine too, but I like to put that out there.
Yeah.
Well, I think because I've got the Awaken ritual, I'm reluctant to use it properly, but I could see Eliseo kind of tracing his fingers over everything as he walks past, like running them along the trees and the rocks, just to get a sense of if he's going the right way. So he doesn't know exactly what he's doing, but he gets a general kind of vibe about the area from doing that. So I think tracing his fingers over as much as he can of the area.
Yeah, I'm thinking Nima is she's very guarded. So being able to open up and draw spirits or persons to her, she's very guarded in how she lets people in.
And you said, is this something they notice from a distance or just they notice about you?
Yeah, I guess, and you've kind of broadened it to it, like either what you would look like in your manner as you're approaching this spire, or if there's any sort of telltale signs about you that you have a ritual, that you have been dabbling in magic. Yeah. Basically representing how you all already have a little bit of that ruin affecting you. So, yeah. Cool. So
nothing that springs to mind.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. And we've mentioned, Eliseo mentioned finding the way here by kind of using your intuition, touching the stones and stuff like that. You're finding the way. Is there any other skills or ways that Nima and Vero have kind of found, how you know that this is the right way, how you've come to be here?
I would say she's been praying to try to atone, and she received a message that she could find atonement at the top of this tower.
Cool.
Or the spire, top of the spire.
I think Vero probably snuck into some of the forbidden parts of the library, and there was manuscripts directing her in this direction.
Yeah, because this is a remote place, and I think whether you've been sort of called here or you kind of found those little secrets about kind of how to make your way down here, it's to the bottom of a valley, so the sides are very high and craggy, and it's far away. But I'd imagine you've all been having to hike for at least a few days, one way or another, to get here, and finally you see this thing in the distance, and it is towering. And you all immediately have that sense that you've definitely come to the place you were seeking, and you see why there's so much sort of legend around this place, and just something immediately mystical about the fact that people somehow scaled this to make a monastery at the top. So the ground is mostly bare, but you start to notice as you're getting closer, occasionally these big like ridges in the ground where it's kind of like a deep furrow, like something's carved space in the ground. And they're spread out pretty far, but they become more and more regular. And you start to hear a very, very distant kind of rumbling sound. In general, it's been quiet, occasional birds in the distance, the wind kind of blowing through the valley. But as you get closer, these ridges start to get more and more regular in this scraping, rumbling sound, like stone dragging along the ground. And the three of you come to sort of a bit more of a cluster of brush and trees, and peeking past it towards the base of the spire, lumbering around the corner of it, you see this massive stone colossus, this kind of animated giant dragging its feet along the ground. And maybe it's some kind of guardian. What do you all do?
Let's see.
You currently have some cover, and it seems to be kind of making its rounds very slowly, walking past.
Is it staying the same distance from the tower, or is it circling outwards?
If you watch it for a minute, it seems like it's continuing the same path, like it's a spiral. It comes close to the spire, and then it starts to weave its way back out again.
So,
no immediate threat. Yeah.
I think, so how far away is the Colossus?
It's, gosh, you could, if you threw a rock pretty far, you could probably hit it.
Okay.
It's a decent distance. You don't feel like it's immediately spotting you, but it's, you realize you basically kind of have to wait or time things to sneak past this thing. That's all.
Okay. You all see Nima walk towards it as if she was going to approach it. She starts to walk towards it slowly, and you hear her mumble something like, I must announce my intention to atone for my sins.
To the Colossus.
Well, she mumbles that as she's walking forward. That's okay. The other characters hear this as she starts to walk forward.
Alicio and Vera, what do you think about that? Do you let her go?
Yeah.
I make eye contact with Alicio and sort of shrug, like maybe we should use this as a distraction.
Yeah. Are we close enough to care just now? Maybe we use him as almost like research. Let's see how this thing reacts. It's a bit selfish.
So yeah, she walks up and she kneels down and prostrates herself down, and she's like, I've come to atone. I've been called here to atone for my sins. Please accept my wretched soul.
Crunch.
So she like bows down. I assume he's like he said, like maybe 50 yards or something.
Sure, yeah.
And she prostrates herself in front of it.
Interesting. Yeah, I think so. It's rumbling past, and like when you speak out loud, it kind of comes to a halt, and then from a distance, Alicio and Vera kind of see like the rumbling, like scrape as this head kind of turns down, looking, and you realize this thing doesn't seem to have eyes. It's very crudely carved, just big lumps of rock somehow piled on top of each other, and it seems to be like looking at you but not seeing you with eyes, and just kind of stops in its path. It doesn't seem to do anything else for the moment. It seems to be thrown off from its routine that it just has been doing. What do the rest of you do?
I might walk forward and offer support to Nima, sort of paying heed to this things in the hope that it lets us all past. So I'll kind of go over and kneel down alongside them.
Oh, nice.
I'm going to dart to the tower.
Nice.
if there is some sort of shelter where I can continue to watch what's unfolding. Like, I'm not ready to sacrifice myself to a giant stone thing.
Sure.
But I want to find out what happens.
So you can see, all of you can see behind it, the base of the tower, it's just covered with, looks like moss and some kind of dried vines that are just very thick. The vegetation just grown over this thing. It's been here forever. But you could see there's a place to probably find some cover. Are you trying to dart right past this whole scene? You kind of trying to go off and take your time to kind of go out of sight, or you just want to see how it reacts?
Going to attempt to escape its notice.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I don't particularly care if Nima and Alicio see me.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. For the time being, with both of them kneeling there, it seems to just be kind of measuring and reading. It's not moving towards them, but it's not passing by. It's still kind of right between them and the spire. I think to dart past it, let's do a risk roll just to kind of see what happens. So that I'm just going to pull it up and describe. We'll kind of walk through the mechanics of it for a second here. So when you attempt a risky task, you say what you hope will happen, and then you ask the table what could go wrong. So just seeing this image, what could go wrong with darting past the giant?
I mean, maybe its reflexes are more powerful. You know, maybe it's quicker than you think it is. So, maybe you didn't give it enough. If it notices you, it's quicker than you realized.
Yeah,
could be that. It could be that it reacts differently. Maybe someone actually trying to run past it provokes more of a attack on you or a guard. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, this you'll kind of see as we go. Every role is very collaborative. It's kind of getting everyone's addition to the fiction. So we kind of, there's very little on my end. So you to make your dice pool, you can look at that roll for your party link. There's a couple light dice there. There's some blue ones. To start, you take one light colored dice. You're basically going to build a few dice that you get to roll. Take one light colored dice. If
I'm sorry, where's the roll for your party link?
Oh, let me resend that. It's in the private chat on the side.
I think I might have lost it when I logged out.
Oh, okay, I sent it one more time there. So if, what you're trying to do, if you have any skills related to it, you get to add one light dice. So you start with no dice. So So you have forensics, herbs, surgery, and lore. Is there any ways you might be using those?
Sadly, I can't think of any.
Okay, if there's any lore you could think of around it, that might be one.
I have a vague memory that these things don't have a 360 field of vision. Like even that they are limited in scope of field of vision.
Yeah, I like that. That's something you read in those archives when you were poking around. So add one light dice for lore, and then you can add another light dice if you accept a devil's bargain from another player of the GM. So the way devil's bargains work is that you it's basically everyone else gets to suggest something that will happen regardless of the outcome of your roll. So basically something that goes wrong or is complicated. You don't have to accept it. You can sort of make a counter offer, but if you accept the devil's bargain, you get to add another light dice. So just kind of going over the rule really quick. Devil's bargains include things like causing unintended harm, getting lost or separated from your companions, sacrificing an item or piece of treasure, attracting the attention of wild animals, forest spirits, or monstrosities, or betraying a fellow treasure hunter. So things like that. If you're willing to let that happen, you get to add another dice. Does anyone have any suggestions for devil's bargains?
Possibly Vero gets through, but then the Colossus becomes aggressive on the two of us.
Yeah. That's fine. If that's too much, you can counter. We can kind of. Let's see. I'm thinking. Devil's bargain. I mean, I think in general, I think you darting past, my devil's bargain is that it takes notice of you because you're suddenly a threat. Whatever that means. I guess you're trying to sneak past. So it happens regardless. Maybe it becomes more alert, kind of like you suggested, like it goes into more of a defensive mode.
It feels early on to be accepting devil's bargains.
Sure, yeah. That's fine. You can just roll the 1. You can also add a dark dice if you want. That it's almost worse, actually. Dark dice is if you decide to risk your mind and body. If it rolls higher than your ruin, it will increase your ruin. That's just another part of the game. But you can just do the 1.
I'll just do this one.
And you can also add dice after you rolled to keep re-rolling. So,
okay.
All right.
Roll the 5.
Nice. So that's a success at a cost. So go back up here. You succeed, but there's a complication. So I describe the complication, and you describe how you succeed. You can keep that 5, or you can add dice to try to get a 6 if you want.
I'll keep the 5.
Okay. So I think so. You do succeed in darting past it. What does that look like as you sneak past?
I emerge from the brush at an angle, going away from where the two of them are prostrate on the ground in front of it, and sort of try to loop back into brush. It's not an entrance, but there's an overhang of some sort with some vines that I can sort of sneak into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the vines, as you get there, you realize they're not all dead. Some of them are definitely in full bloom. Like closer to the stone, there's layers of like different lichen and moss, and there's these bright blue flowers peeking out from it. And they have this invigorating scent to them. It's actually very pretty up close. The complication is as you run across the ground, you kind of glance up at one point and you see there's vultures circling very high overhead. That seem to have been watching the scene and kind of calling out to each other. And just in the distance, some of these vultures, these birds of prey, are aware of your party. See what that means. Come back to it. But meanwhile, you're there. You could definitely get a head start ahead of your companions if you want to. You do find right away there's kind of a carved, like you said, an alcove, and there's actually steps carved into the stone. We'll come back to Vero in a second there. But meanwhile, Nima and Alicio, is your crouching down? Are you saying this out loud, or are you just hoping that the gesture is kind of like, what is your action then?
So yeah, I think initially the gesture. I'm thinking, looking at my skills, I've got either sacrifice or rituals. So I was going to try and use one of those. So I'm thinking about bringing out from my bag or my robes a stone from a homeland that maybe shows how far I've traveled. Maybe even anointing it with some of my own blood, and then offering it up to the creature as a token to get past. Trying to demonstrate to it that I'm worthy of it.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. And Nima just has said that and kind of prostrated, just kind of seeing.
Right. So she has her head on the ground, her prostrated, and she's still like saying things like, I've come so far. I am not worthy, but I hope to atone for past misdeeds. Please give me grace and look upon me fondly. And she's kind of freaking out because she knows this is she doesn't know what to do, and she's just kind of thrown herself into her faith.
Mm-hmm.
So she's pretty emotional right now. She's like, and so she kind of like, after she says that, she looks at Alicio, and you can tell she's pretty scared.
I think Alicia, what you described, since you're both there together, if you're willing, if you want to make a roll to see how that responds, I think it's probably safe to say it'll count for both of you.
Okay.
Just kind of putting it together in the fiction, so you're both doing the same thing. There's no real mechanics for helping each other in this game, but
okay. So how many dice would that be?
So for a risk roll, so you're hoping to basically appease it. It sounds like, show you really. I think you already mentioned a skill relevant, right?
Say like sacrifice.
Sacrifice, yeah. Okay, so add a light dice for that. Any devil's bargains, things that might go wrong here.
I suppose just that it rejects it.
That could go wrong. Yeah, I guess a devil's bargain would be whether you succeed or fail. Something that might happen.
I mean, we could get captured in some manner.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that we're found wanting, or let me see, either captured, or I'll just say that.
So, I mean, I think that's also another potential consequence if it goes wrong, because it sounds like if you succeed, then you will, it will mean you see what I mean?
Yeah, devil's bargain should be a side effect, not necessarily a direct. Yeah.
I like that too. That's definitely a good.
One of the devil's bargain could be that maybe we draw unwanted attention from some other force.
Like you mentioned our presence or something like that.
Yeah, so not necessarily like the anything guarding it, but maybe something around the spire.
Sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned you were putting blood on the stone. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that would definitely. There's a scent in the air, maybe to other animals nearby. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So if you're cool with that, that'll be a second light dice.
Okay. So I've got just learn how to use this. So that's a light, and then is it a dark dice for the devil's bargain?
No, you just add a second light dice. Dark dice is only for a ritual, or if you're willing to risk your body and mind. Yeah.
Okay. So that's. Okay. Oh, sorry. I'm still learning how to use this dice roller.
Yeah, it's a little weird. You can drag things around. You can also, I think if you double click one, it will re-roll it.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got 2 light dice, and it's a 1 and a 4.
All right. So we go with the highest. So the 4 is success with the complication. So you can take the 4, or you could add another dark die and re-roll everything if you want to try to get a higher result.
Oh, one thing is you might want to refresh. When we were doing this on Thursday, sometimes when I would re-roll, it wouldn't actually update because I'm refreshing and I don't see I don't see a 1.
I've heard it has been acting weird. Yeah, I'm not super familiar with. Let's see if I try to refresh it.
Okay.
I think we eventually should see all the same dice results. Do you know what I mean?
All right, there we go. Okay. So sorry, it's a case of deciding whether to stick with the 4 then, or
success with a complication. If you're fine with that, we'll keep that. If you want to try to aim for the 6, basically a 4 and a 5 are the same. So it's always pushing you to gamble more.
I think just now I'd go with a complication. I'll be able to deal with whatever happens.
Yeah, it's early on. So here's what happens. What does it look like when you're You're taking out the stone, and how do you add blood to it?
I think he's surprisingly calm about this, sort of like he's seen it all before. Kind of like he's trying to placate an animal. So he's reaching in, maintaining eye contact where he thinks the thing's eyes would be, and just very gently kind of bringing this out as if he's done it all before. And again, pulling out a small knife and drawing it across his palm with not really any reaction. So it's all done in a very practiced, very kind of smooth manner. And then offered up to the creature.
Yeah, and as you do, there's a little bit of a breeze, and you're kind of aware in the process that predators or creatures that might follow the scent of blood might be aware of this now that you're kind of holding that out in the open. But you succeed. The Colossus again rumbles. There's like pieces of it like lean down, and you both actually feel it bring its arms in to kind of like nudge you a little closer, as if it's like, if it could smell, if it's just taking in the offering. And it actually very slowly, surprisingly delicately, starts pushing in the dirt right next to you and just scooting you both towards the spire. You kind of tumble haphazardly. I think that's, for now, the complication really is that it's not going to let you go back now. It's sort of like, okay, you've made a commitment here, and now it kind of straightens back up and looks towards the three of you, between you and the spire. And you all notice now again too, there's different like morning glories and flowers among the vines of the spire, and occasionally like bees and butterflies come in and out of it. There's this whole, life has grown around this thing. And you can all see there are these carvings on the side, steps that very slowly look like they're spiraling upwards along the side, that someone long ago took great care to carve this path. I think. Still drinking my coffee. But that's the end of ring 1. So there are 5 rings. We can do a quick break if you all need to. We can continue. How's everyone doing?
I'm okay to continue.
Good.
Okay.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably do a couple of 5-minute breaks throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And again, I should have mentioned it earlier. The Gauntlet's an open table policy. If anyone just needs to go for any reason, no worries. Just send us a message in the chat or something.
Yeah.
So that's the end of ring 1. So what do y'all do from here? What's your approach? You have vines you could start climbing, or you could start making your way up the steps.
Oh, steps for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think Nima's
steps.
Nima's not that athletic, so she definitely takes the steps. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this game doesn't really worry about equipment. If you this basic, like I said in the intro, you sort of prepared. If you have some basic climbers tools you're planning to use, just kind of narratively add that in. Yes, you start to make your way up. It's slow going. There's a bit of a space between the steps, and the vines hang off the side of it as you kind of basically peel back that layer of vines, and you find the kind of hidden path inside. So it's one at a time, very kind of slowly shuffling, pressed up against the stone. The steps are, they're really only a foot or so wide. There's not a lot of room. It's wider in some places, like a natural sort of curve of the stone. So there's a little more space to kind of sit or stretch out if you need to. But as you start to get a little further up, you can peek out through the vines and you can see that you're getting further and further up from the ground. You become more and more aware of the breeze that you felt at the bottom. And that there's definitely wind blowing through the vines, and occasionally it kind of bats at you, and you kind of have to be mindful and keep it out of the way. Sometimes the vines have thorns in them, like blackberry vines or small flowers. It starts to rain a little bit too, like very, very slow drizzling. You become aware of the sort of, you got a long ways to go, and it might not be easy going the whole time. And the steps as you continue on, there's that lichen and moss in places that mostly is dry, but you realize it's starting to get damp. And you're probably about midway through the climb when this wind just picks up and it just whipping the vines on one side of you, and you're desperately trying to hold on to whatever handholds you found and keep your places in the rock. So you're very aware that you kind of need to keep going. It's too far to go back down at this point. But how do you all deal with these winds and these hazards that are underfoot? Or the ways you would like to try to approach that?
I think I would put more weight on the vines. Like I'm still progressing up the stairs, but I'm more relying on after tugging to make sure that they're relatively not crumbly. I'm going to start leaning more and more on the vines and less on the steps as we go up.
Are you, is that the order? Are you going first?
Yes, I think.
I guess you got there first. Yeah.
I was about to say, I suspect Nima and Alicia are less than pleased with me, and I'm out in front.
Yeah, sure. Just scouting for them. Yeah.
I mean, we could tie ourselves together, right? If one person falls off, that would, I assume, right? That wouldn't. Is that what they do with rock climb or mountain climbing? Tie each other together, so if one falls off, they're not lost. I don't know if that works in this situation, but that's one thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that makes sense.
Yep.
All three of you, or just the two of you? Vero, do you join the chain of
Sure.
Link? Okay.
I'm lightly skeptical.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think that I know that having more party members will make this easier in the end, but I'm also not prepared to fall off of the cliff for anyone, fall off of the tower for anyone.
Yeah, this does mean that, if one of your companions behind you falls, you're going to have to help them or they're going to pull you a little bit. So up to you. Yeah.
Does the distance, does it look like a storm's coming in? Does this rain look like it's going to abate soon, or do we see anything about the weather?
Yeah, if you peek out, you do see that it is like, the clouds have darkened. It's starting to rain a little heavier. You can see kind of, from a distance ways away, there's like heavier rain that's coming down. So like chances are it's making its way here.
Anima says, "I'm afraid I brought this upon us all. I have much to atone for, and this is my cross I must bear. And unfortunately, you are caught in its gaze."
And I'll just pull my hood up and say, "Well, we all have much to atone for."
So cheery. You continue to make your way, maybe more cautiously, taking that precaution of tying each other together. And you do have the vines behind you. You could always grab onto those if you had to and hope they hold if you were to lose your footing. A couple interesting things you do see in the rock as you're making your way up is it's almost like these layers of fossils. Occasionally in the stone, you see like small creatures that were here from a long time ago, and almost like they're like layers of, I forget the term, but preserved layers of the stone. The valley went so high on either side, and maybe this spire was here from a long time ago, and it's almost like parts of the stone were maybe under the ocean at one point. But eventually you do, Vero, you do see a little ways ahead, a bit of a lip, like the step actually has gotten really small, and you realize you're going to have to really like reach up and pull yourself up to get over this ledge. But you can kind of see the edge of what looks like a cavern or a resting place. And in front of you, there's some frayed rope that looks like maybe this used to be a bit of a rope ladder to join this gap. But somehow you're going to have to improvise to get to the next little ledge here. What do you do?
Can you describe the gap again?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's a good like 4 or 5 feet. Like it's not super far, but you're gonna have to. I guess you could try to jump it. You could try to climb the vines. It's just not easily scalable. You can't just step over. Yeah, and it is up, so it is like a gap.
But I could probably climb the vines to traverse this gap.
Yeah, you could try. You would just be stepping off of the actual stone because the vines are on one side. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I turn back and ask Nima and Alicio, do you guys have any ideas?
Depends on whether the vines hold. And I wonder if I could make a check on that. I've got the omen skill, like possibly reaching out and kind of holding the vines and seeing if I can read them, see if I think they're strong enough to actually bear our weight as we sidle across them.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
Okay.
I think so. We only are gonna roll if it's risky. So you could do it 2 ways. So you could just sort of narratively tell me if you want to, like, what omen convinces you that it's gonna hold, or we could do a roll where you're trying to climb by just sensing or something. Ultimately, you have to make the roll to climb.
I think he'd be looking for signs of life and vitality, so that if he feels really strong signs of life from the vine, it's maybe healthier and stronger and less likely to tear itself out of the earth and send us to our deaths. So he just kind of feeling it little by little. Possibly even he goes first and kind of finds the path across.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think you'll definitely see that there's places where it's dried vines, where it's maybe strong, but it might be brittle, and you can find the parts that are still living and maybe gather those together. Yeah, I like that. So let's do a risk roll. Do you kind of switch places and like still join each other with the rope, or do you
might be better reorganizing?
I think we should probably not be tied together for this moment.
Okay,
sure.
All right, so I'll shuffle out of the rope. Okay, so how many d6 is that?
So just one so far for the skill of omens, and then things that could go wrong here. Obviously, you all are, at least I'm not good at thinking of distances, but you're definitely a few stories from the ground. You're definitely up there. You're maybe, from what you can tell, close to halfway up the spire. Okay. So fall would be quite lethal. There's still plenty of vines to catch on the way down, but that would be an obvious risk.
Okay.
Any devil's bargains?
Do I need to take it just now, or can I if this roll doesn't go my way, can I add the devil's bargain, or does it have to be added at the time?
So it has to be first. You can always add dark dice to keep re-rolling, but it's at that first stage. Yeah, you don't have to take it. It's just a better chance. Does anyone have anyone they want to suggest?
Well, we talked about the vultures.
Yeah.
Do they come back in the picture, maybe?
That could be that. Yeah, they take notice of you.
Yeah, because I'm vulnerable and I'm still bleeding. So.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. You want to go with that?
Or the only thing is, if it's a devil's bargain, I'm going to have to get out of that one. So that's going to be difficult. Although I suppose if the other two can help me fight them off as I'm trying to get across, maybe that's the way to go. Okay, I'll take that.
At least, but they take notice of you. Yeah.
So
2 light dice.
Okay, let's see if I got that. Oh, sorry, how do I add another dice? I've got one here, but
So on the very top, you can click in the different boxes where it's a D4, D6.
so
You can
2d6.
just type a number, or yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I've
Yep.
added way too many.
And
Delete a few here.
you can always delete whatever's on there to make it clear.
Yeah. And there we go. Okay, so that's a 6 is the highest.
Nice. So that's a perfect success. So describe what that looks like.
Okay, so he steps out into nothingness, pulls onto the vines, and just gently kind of reads his way across, maybe shifting hands side to side and just looking for the strongest vine that he can find, and maybe even making a little mark on it with his thumbnail as he goes past, so that the others can follow along. And just as he reaches the end, turning very gently to the side and kind of scrambling up onto the ledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think in that process, wherever you had taken that blood from, it might have left a little trace of it.
Yeah. Oh, that's true, actually.
Places. Yeah. But there's a moment as you're climbing up and you're the vines are dense. You're not fully exposed to the air, but in the process, you kind of have to open them up, and you do glance at some point and do hear a distant, kind of a guttural, harsh cawing that sounds like vultures, some kind of birds of prey. You're not really sure, but you see them circling and kind of veering a little bit closer towards you and then flying back around. And I don't know what that means to you, omen-wise, but you definitely can tell they're aware of you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are vultures scavengers or are they hunters?
It's true. They're scavengers, aren't they? Yeah. Actually, here's what I will say. The odd thing is they're a small group of birds, but they don't all seem to be the same type. So there's definitely at least a vulture, and there's maybe some other kind of eagle in there too. So that's a good point. But you do make your way to the ledge, and because of your first roll, either the guidance you gave for your companions, or you can kind of figure something out and add more ropes. But you do make a stable path for them to make the rest of the way up. And as you all, with the help of Alicio, you make your way up onto this ledge, and you realize this is designed to be a resting point. Actually, it's a narrow cave in the side of the spire that was maybe just a feature of it, but it's been etched out a little bit. So there's a bit of a small floor and enough space for all of you to comfortably sit and kind of rest. Because during this last little climb, the winds continue to just stir and whip at the vines. And you can hear full rainfall coming down a little harder. And, you kind of see this at the same time. Those birds are circling and looking at you, and the rain's falling, and they eventually just kind of take off, maybe to find shelter. But you've all found a bit of shelter in the middle of the spire. And it looks like, as you all make your way into this space, that maybe it was a guard post, or maybe just a resting place along the way. There's a small, looks like a little ledge carved into the side of this space. And there's a couple dried flowers and a couple other items on there. Alicio, though, you have made it up there first, so I'm picturing that you get a first look at this before your companions have got up there. So just a couple little story questions for each of you. But is there anything? Oh, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself in there. Is there anything about this space that kind of gives you a sign that this was a place of pilgrimage, or that you're on the right path? Is there anything that stands out to you of how the space has been created?
I think possibly some kind of relic, maybe a kind of charm or a religious symbol that's been abandoned. A necklace that's been snapped, the chain's broken.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm picturing that's on the little stone altar up there. How does Vero and Nima? How do you feel about this so far? It seems like it's getting more and more precarious as you go along.
Yeah, Nima feels like she must be on the right path. The more dangerous it gets.
Okay.
she feels like, yeah, this is probably what she deserves.
I think Vero is much more of the like, this is going to be an epic tale. I struggled my way through hardships.
Yeah, and you see that like it's been a long time since anyone's been here before. There's like the edges of that rope ladder. You also see that there's a broken bow on the ground and like an empty quiver. There's some extra rope though, and there's a small hammer and those pitons, or however you say it, the little like metal spikes for climbing. That might be useful if you all choose to take them.
Could there also be kind of things left over from people less savory than pilgrims? Like, might there be some bones or I don't know, sign of some, like, maybe dark patches of, we don't know what stained the stone?
I think there's definitely that on the little shelf above, and there's definitely some stuff in the corners. So you don't know if it's just like mold that's grown here, or if it was like, it looks like it's maybe a fire was lit here before. There's some ashes. Looks like a couple bones for sure. You don't know if it's from maybe a meal a long time ago or some creature that died here.
I would like to test the rope.
Oh, the piece. Yeah. It's in good condition. It's definitely usable. Yeah. But as you all are kind of just looking at what's here, what's available, and kind of catching your breath a little bit, because it's been a bit of an arduous climb. That whole time with those steps being so narrow and slick, you couldn't really ever let your guard down, and this is a chance to do so. But the storm outside definitely is picked up, and the winds are now whipping around the spire. It's clear you're going to have to rest for a little bit before you continue on. So one way or another, we'll sort of cut to that a little bit. Do you all? It's getting like later in the day for sure. Like the sun's starting to go down a little bit. You realize this isn't quite a one-day journey that you may have thought to get to the top, especially with the weather. Do you all, take any particular watches or stay up together? What do you all do with this extra time to kind of wait?
I think Nima's gonna. So her ritual is summon, draw a known spirit or person to you. So let me think. I want to make sure I understand. Have the right. What I'm thinking of is, can she, talk to her? Let me think about this. There's some sort of spirit that has been guiding her, albeit not very well. If she ended up in a cult, so some sort of force. She goes out and she listens to these voices or these forces out there, and listens to them. So she wants to. When I'm thinking of summon, can she summon the? I don't know. I don't want to step on. Was it Alicio can kind of talk to the place, right? The memories of stone or trees or water. Can she summon the spirit of the monks that once? Can she maybe summon memories of the people who had been here?
Yeah, it's definitely something you could try with the ritual. Is that something that Nima's done before? Just basically kind of draw. Actually, I want to look at the description for a second.
Yeah.
It says draw a known spirit or person to you. Is there someone So I think going with that, is there someone that you've maybe asked for guidance before? Or
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
I'm also
thinking. Oh, go on.
I'm also interested if I've had players use rituals experimentally too. If you want to, maybe it's someone you don't know, but you want to try it and see what happens. We can
Yeah,
go with
I'm
that too.
thinking of the monks, or she's reaching out to a spirit that's been here before.
Okay.
So are there spirits that are attached to this place that stay here?
Cool. Is that someone you think that you've known, like you've heard of someone who's been here before? So you're gonna.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Or is it open ended?
She wants to reach out to other pilgrims that have come this way.
Cool.
Yeah, so somehow she got the idea that this is how she's going to atone. And we'll say that she heard rumors of only the pure can survive the ascent.
Cool. Yeah.
And so she reach out to others who have tried.
I like that. So you're doing a ritual?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So, do you do this kind of in front of your campaigns? Or you kind of, here's what I'm doing, or you try to just take some private space to kind of do this on your own?
I think she just starts doing it. Like, she just isn't one of those people who she gets along with others, but I think she's just so lost in her own world that it's not uncommon for her to just start doing things without any introduction. You know what I mean? She's one of those people that maybe abruptly leaves conversations without understanding, what other people might, be aware of. So
yeah. All right. So any so you hope, you described what you hope to do. Anything that could go wrong in this place by drawing spirits?
Well, yeah, she could bring unwanted attention. She could definitely, we'll say her connection to reality is very frayed in some ways, right? Is she, when she summons this other spirit, is she, she's not the most stable person. So does that, could that make her more, easily influenced by negative things, or less sensible?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, with your background too, it kind of makes sense too that you might be vulnerable to whatever shows up. That could be a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's do the dice pool for a second. So any skills related to it? I'm sure there's something there.
Yeah, I'd say wandering pilgrim. She's trying to contact these other pilgrims who have come here. So
a light dice for that. It's also a dark dice because it's a ritual. And then any devil's bargains? Yeah, I guess I should describe too. Like you're all kind of trying to figure out what There's rumors about who made this place. You may have your different ideas, but you don't really know for sure. And the space looks like it was set up as like maybe a resting point or a guard spot with that bow that's there. But then there's a little shelf that could have been like an altar. So it's unclear what the purpose of the place was, or who really built it, or what the true history is. Not to feed anything to you, but any ideas for what else for devil's bargains? Sorry.
I guess one could be I don't know. Does anyone have any ideas? I'll let someone else.
So the initial devil's bargain is just you go into some sort of fugue state, or you're possessed. I was unclear on.
Those are just things that might go
reality.
Wrong.
Yeah.
You summon something other than the thing that you want to summon.
Oh yeah.
Or you have to leave peace in yourself.
Yeah, I was either way. You know, whatever shows up is something that's very disturbing.
And not the pure of heart pilgrim you were hoping for.
That's good.
Yeah.
Cool. So roll 2 light and 1 dark.
Yep.
All right. Oh, let me see. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I think they rolled. So the dark die was a 6. That's the highest.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I guess the ruin goes up by 1.
Mm-hmm. The ruin goes up. We'll get to that. But you do succeed. So kind of describe, what does it look like as you're doing this ritual? What do your companions see?
So what they see is she goes to that altar and starts looking at things and like, you know, maybe doing some sort of hand signs with herself, you know, some sort of genuflection, and takes things and maybe like brings them to her forehead. And so she's kind of touching these different objects, and she starts mumbling like, "Oh, you know, my brothers and sisters that came before me, that inspired, that we all look for atonement. Please provide me guidance and share with me what you are willing to bestow."
And so when you've done this before, just filling it in a little bit more, how have the spirits showed up to you? Has it been just like a vision? Has there been some effect in your environment?
Yeah, I would say what happens is she definitely sees the visions. She sees visions. And then we'll also say that even though only she can see the visions, they do leave physical markings on her skin.
Oh, okay.
And that's what other people notice.
Ooh,
right?
I like that. We're going to get to that too. But what does show up? I'm going to have you make a ruin. Actually, you don't need to make a ruin roll because your ruin went up. The pilgrim does show up, or at least tells you that it's a pilgrim. And it's this vision of this tall, pretty athletic looking man with various like ropes and harnesses and climbing gear on him. He says, like, I did come before you. I reached the top and I proved myself worthy. And then he starts to like take off pieces of this climbing gear, and you can see underneath the leather, he's almost sprouted feathers. And his big shreds of his flesh have been just torn away. And underneath, instead of blood, it's almost like gold. Like there's a gleam coming from under him. And he starts just keep taking off the gear, and then you realize then his hands are almost like talons. And just the last thing before you kind of maybe go into some kind of shock from this is just his talons just starts to tear away his own flesh, and there's just gleaming gold underneath. And the thing that's really disturbing is that it's beautiful to you. That gold is almost like I'm shredding the parts of myself that are impure, and kind of looks at you with these piercing eyes at the end and says, you might prove yourself worthy yet. And then it fades away. And your companions see Nima, doing this ritual, and there's claw marks that show up, maybe on whatever parts of if it's just your arms or whatever is visible, like something invisible is clawing you. So I have to give you a condition for that. Let me just find that really quick, which is fun. Conditions and Trophy Dark it's really a sign that your ruins increased, and it's kind of, I tell you what it is, it's up to you kind of how you role play it, and we might sort of come back to it. I think from this, I think you notice, well, I'm going to do two things with that. It's up to you if your companions notice this right away or if you keep it to yourself, but you do notice that there's a little bit of it's almost like your blood has a shine to it, like metallic ink or something, like maybe whatever. It's very subtle. It's just those marks where your skin is broken, but you feel like there's a bit of a shine to it. You feel like your fingernails are becoming a little more sharp, almost like pre-talons, kind of like that spirit you saw.
Yeah, and so they see me, have this kind of trance-like look, and I'm like, have tears are streaming down. So I look in some sort of, is she happy or sad? I don't know. Is she okay? And they see, like, they actually see the talons come upon, and then when I come out, like, I'm just ecstatic. I'm ecstatic and manic, and I'm like going up to them and like, we will be worthy. We will be worthy. This is the way. I have seen those who came before me, and they became people of gold, of pure-hearted, of golden hearts. And so I'm like, don't you get it? Don't you understand? This is the way.
It seems strange they'd reward you with riches like gold.
No, they became gold. So I described the vision that I saw to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you show them the bit of a change in your own hands, or do you keep that to yourself?
I would say, I don't necessarily mention that, right? They might see if they inspect me more, that's fine, but I don't necessarily. I look at that, and I think I'm also like, maybe I realized I was a little too excitable there, right? Like, hey, this is how you got in the cult in the first place, like, so.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of tell them what I saw, and then that's enough. Yeah, let's
sure. Yeah.
And then I say it's time for bed, and I go to bed.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's part of it is just the ring structure, but basically you all need to rest, or you could try not to sleep. But do you all take turns? Do you all just kind of go to sleep?
I would propose to Alicio that I take first shift, he takes second shift, and then we wake Nima. Then he wakes Nima up to take third shift.
Yep, that's fair.
Because it sounds like Nima has just pieced out.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even like I'll just let Nima sleep on through, because I kind of enjoy the meditative state of just being alone in that room while everybody else is asleep. So I'll just kind of carry on through my shift and into his.
Okay, let's get to Vero's watch first. So your companions are sleeping. Is there anything that you do just in your time alone, Vero, like when you're resting, or do you read, or anything you're preparing? Vero, when you're by yourself. If you can hear me, if I need.
There was some sort of ledge that had like dead flowers and random crap on it, right?
Yeah, like carved into the wall, sort of.
Okay. I will examine that.
Yeah, I think you. So there's a couple things on there, and these are sort of open-ended, but there's something on there that reminds you of home. Presumably, you've all traveled a long way, but something on here makes you miss home. What is that?
It's a small bag that smells of turmeric.
Oh, cool. Yeah, like a little satchel of spices.
Yep.
You realize as you look closer, it actually it's almost like a little alcove. Like the ledge goes a little further in, and there's like a couple little other things on there that have been left as offerings. But there's something that's clearly really valuable here, and you're the first to notice it. I think it's a small like gold pendant of a bird. It's like a pendant of an owl with its wings spread and its talons out. Do you leave it? Do you take it?
I think I pick it up, examine it, and then leave it. It's not what I came here for.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, and it looks, from looking over this, it's clear that this is where pilgrims have left offerings. and you're looking kind of down below on the side of the wall where there's like soot on the wall, like maybe they've lit fires, especially these spices in that bag. It smells, it's like turmeric, but it's almost like maybe there's other things in there too, like it's incense of some kind that's been partially used. But yeah, well, while you are sleeping, the other two. Oh wait, sorry. Did Lisa? Did you say you just kind of stay up like meditating, or do you sleep at first while Vero's watching?
No, I'll go to sleep first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Nima, while you're sleeping, well, each of you have a dream while you're sleeping, but Nima, you have this vision of just floating, just very effortlessly, like you're just buoyant, and the wind is blowing over you, and you look down, and you realize like your hair, your chest, your body is becoming golden feathers, and your body is that of like a large bird floating in the sky. And at first, it's exhilarating, and just like flapping your wings, you're feeling the strength of your wings. But then you immediately kind of hear the sound of other birds behind you, and you realize you're being pursued by much bigger things that are bird shaped, but there's something off about them. They're almost like leathery winged beasts with like long pointed beaks and talons, just eyeing you hungrily, calling, flapping after you and pursuing you. And it's a very restless sleep, and you're kind of trying to maneuver as this hawk or this eagle, and you're dodging between the vines and trying to escape, and then eventually you do wake up. Eliseo, you're falling asleep to the sound of that wind blowing across this little alcove. And for, maybe some of the thoughts you have, or maybe this is a bit of what that song is that you're hoping to learn, the sound of it. But that kind of lulls you to sleep in a very peaceful way. One thing that you notice in your dreams is just that wind sweeping and carrying you up as well. You feel buoyant, you feel lifted in the air, and it's like the melodies kind of swirling around you, and it's all these different harmonies, and you feel like you're gaining this knowledge of like the voice of the wind in the same way that you would, touch the stones and the earth and stuff like that. But at some point in the dream, you realize you're flying, and then you're just let go, and you're just completely at the mercy of the elements, and you start to just fall, and you have this glimpse of being way above the ground at the top of the spire. And as the last thing you see before you kind of wake up with a start is your companion standing over, looking down from the top of the spire as if they had let you fall or thrown you even, and you wake up with a start. I'm kind of matching this together. Whoever takes a different watch. But at some point then you trade watches. It's Eliseo. I guess Nima's still sleeping, so Eliseo, take the next watch.
Yeah, I do, yeah. So I'll move to the kind of door of the chamber and kind of get in position and plan just to kind of meditate, to listen and take in as much of the kind of the environment as I can, and see if the spire's trying to tell us anything. So just sitting as quietly and still as possible, and just kind of listening to everything that's going on around.
Nice. So having had that dream and then hearing the wind again, does that change how it sounds to you, how it feels, or you kind of back in reality?
I think I'm reflecting on the meaning of it, the significance of it. And I'm worried that maybe there's an omen of my companion's malice in that. Perhaps it's a warning not to get too close to that ledge or turn my back.
And you know what? I forget this all the time, but for each of those dreams, it's going to be a ruin roll. So we'll do yours since we're talking about it. So just roll a single dark dice.
Sure. Oh, oops. It's a 4.
All right, so that does increase your ruin to 3. And this sense of, like you said, very uneasy sense that maybe your companions are not to be trusted. that maybe that's an omen of what's to come. I think the condition, let's see here. I think that sorry, I'm scrolling through my thing here. I feel like that's just the general condition is uneasiness, like you said. Like you can't, basically the sense you can't ever turn your back. Part of you just feels like the moment you turn your back, either the spire's gonna cast you off or your companions are gonna take advantage of you. You don't really know which.
Yeah,
so
and that gets him because I think he's a little complacent, even a little smug, and a little too much trying to stress that he's at ease with everything. So that uneasiness and that lack of control is very worrying.
Nice. And so you sit with that, you notice as you're watching, taking your watch over the little alcove there, you see there's also, you saw fossils on the way up kind of in the sides of the stone, and you see almost in the dirt, the dust at the bottom of this this little alcove, there's like little footprints of maybe birds, the little bird tracks that have come and gone. And something you didn't notice before, a little bit just above the alcove, there's like the remains of a nest made from the dried like stalks of those vines. There's shredded pieces of armor in it that are hanging out. At one point, the wind kind of like rustles and this part of this nest falls down next to you, and it's like shredded leather armor. It does make you think of your companion and those little scars as far as what could shred something like that.
Yeah.
Just a little moment.
And I'll pocket those as well if they're small enough. Just put them in my satchel.
Sure. Vero, while you're sleeping, you have a vision at some point. You remember how you managed to get ahead of your companions and find the entrance to the spire first, and you're starting to climb up ahead first. And you have a glimpse of what you think the monastery would look like at the very top. This vision of kind of open sky and this kind of beautiful arched stonework and every almost like a miniature trying to think of the word, like a gazebo outdoors, so like little pillars where the roof is open to the sky, and everything is just inlaid with gold, almost like flames on the side of it, and there's this burning little fire in the center of it, and that incense that you smelled before is wafting off of it. It's very, very intense, like intoxicating, and just this image of having got to the top and being ready to discover the secrets. And you kind of look down and you realize your whole body is also engulfed in flame, golden flame, and you're just glowing, and then you wake up again. You're sort of consumed by the flames of the that were lit at the top, but also coming from inside the stonework and then through your whole body. That's going to be a ruin roll as well for this dream. And we'll do Nima's last.
One.
Doesn't phase you.
This is what happened last time in the Alien game too. All she did was roll 1 and 2s. So
nice.
Kind of par for the course.
Yeah. This is when you want to roll low, but
yeah.
But eventually Nima, and I described your dream a little bit. When you do wake up from that, that's also going to be a ruin roll. So let's just do that too.
Okay. Let me see. 2.
Nice. So you're fine. Yep. It's really funny how those can work. I've had it where someone hit their full ruin like before they were halfway through, and other people who it just never went up. So.
Yeah.
But eventually, you've got some rest. You all, a couple other things you notice, whether on your watch or once you've got up from it and you've taken some time, you see that the walls of this little alcove are covered in drawings. Some of it was kind of faint. You didn't really notice till you're up close to the wall, but it's almost like those cave drawings where maybe it was drawn in some kind of charcoal or burned. But they're all depicting different winged beasts. Some of them are like half human, half, you know, it looks like it's an angel, or it's a human with a bird head. And then there's one other image too of like the top of a mountain with like flames coming up from it. Kind of very prehistoric kind of drawing feel to it. But some of them look like they're a little more ornate and almost like religious iconography. So something that was set up here a long time ago. When you all get up, one thing that Nima, you notice as well is that your little your fingernails have continued to grow a little bit, and now they're full on. At least the fingernails are full claws.
Oh wow! So this is something my companions notice this as well. Like this is or do it? Is it something someone else would notice or just me?
I think it's, unless you try to conceal it, they'll probably become obvious.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I look at this and there's a nervousness because I fell for that cult. You know, that I'm like, I'm hoping I'm on the right path. Right. Like I'm not going to stop, but I'm just kind of like, you know, I hope, and it's not even on the right path. I hope that I'm worthy. It would be more intelligent if I knew that I might be on the wrong path, but that's not, I'm so narrow focused. I'm just hoping that, this will all work out.
Nice. Vero and Alicio, if you notice this, what do you take notice of? Or do you let them see, I guess is what I'm asking.
I would say I'm a little self-conscious of it, but I don't have anything that I could hide them with. Do you know what I mean? Like,
sure, yeah, unless you like wrap it in cloth or something.
You know, maybe I keep my hands like kind of together more.
Okay,
but eventually they'll see. You know what I mean? They'll see me grab something. Yeah, I don't have any. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll come back to that. I like that. As you all, at some point, you know, the storm is abated. You're not sure how long you've been up here. It's been hard to tell with like the clouds and the wind passing over the entrance, but you all feel more or less like you've got a night's rest. It's hard to tell though, but the sun is shining again. You hear the buzzing of insects from inside those vines, like the bees going to the different flowers. You see occasionally like a little like lizard scuttles up the side of the stone, and just the sense of how teeming with life this place is, that's kind of just continued to grow around it. You find a thing you hadn't noticed there before. There's a small like traveler's journal. This is kind of like on the ground next to some of those other items, and you don't know if one of you has left it there or if it's just wasn't noticed before.
Who notices this?
You all do at some point. Yeah, if you start to pack up and kind of get ready to make your way out there, it's kind of closer to the entrance. And it looks like it's a half completed journal, but it seems to be from maybe another pilgrim. Most of it seems to be like little notes of omens they saw. And it seems very similar to each of you in some way. It's a little bit unsettling. Like for each of you, there's some detail I would kind of like for you to kind of add to the fiction. If there's something that's written that seems like there's no way that would have been in there, like that's a detail you personally saw, or that's a vision you saw, but you see it written there in the book.
Yeah, I'm thinking for Nima, it talks about coming from like my exact hometown, and what they describe like is exactly where I came from. You know, it's almost like they might as well put in my direct address in the sense of it was so specific.
And I'm going to be looking at towards the end of the book, because I want to know why this was left behind. And I think that the pilgrim that wrote it is starting to lose faith. And they're talking about how when they pray, they don't hear or feel any presence at all.
I think that at some point towards the beginning, there's a description of like why this person is going on their journey. And it's the same sort of anger and shame and sort of disgrace and pride that motivated me to go try to find something to prove everyone wrong.
That's really good. Yeah, there's at first, you know, if you take the time to look at it at all, it seems like these things are coincidence. But Alicia, since you mentioned kind of looking towards the end, it seems to be like a traveler's log. The different people have taken the time to write things in there. But if you look, like there's some blank pages and you skip ahead to the end, and there's like actually a series of epilogues that are just describing things like this person proved themselves worthy in the end, or this person was deemed lacking. And they're all, again, just very almost like hinting at the dreams you've had, which is also uncanny. You know, it says, you know, was cast to their doom, or was wreathed in flame, or joined the winged guardians of this place, or something.
Are they written in the same hand?
Yeah.
Right.
I think for each of you, there's something kind of lurches in you when you read that, and I'm going to have each of you make a rune roll, because it just feels like a prophecy that, like, what you're experiencing is also being written in here, or something.
I don't want to mess up anyone else's roll. Is anyone else rolling at the moment?
Let's see. I got a 4.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead, Vero.
I got a 6.
Nice.
Whoa.
So both yours go up.
Let's see, and I get a. Let me make sure. It says 2. Is that? Yep, I got a 2.
All right. So Neema's does not, but for Alicio and Vero, somehow you just can't shake this. That this feels like a prophecy. That there's just like other knowledge of you that's it's not fair. No one should know this, or be determining your fate for you like that. But like it's this feeling is following you, and I think really my conditions really quick. I think for Vero, the sense that comes from this is almost like you feel your condition is burdened. You feel like there's just too much that this, like if you face this alone, maybe you could do it, but you just feel like there's too many people in this group climbing. You're carrying too much stuff, and you need to lighten up. Things need to lighten up for you to be able to succeed. That's kind of your condition from it. And I think, sorry, Alicio, you feel before was that sort of paranoia, that feeling like you can't turn your back. And I think coupled with that now is that wind comes back. You feel like it's calling your name on and off. Like it's not only that maybe it's ready to sweep you off, but like it's starting to talk to you. And maybe that's what you wanted. But it's basically the condition is like it's distracting. It's hard for you to focus. So that kind of comes and goes the whole time. I'm just looking over my conditions here. I'm not sure how well those fit. Do you all feel like those, like, Are you cool with that? Do you want to do something different?
Mhm.
Okay,
No,
cool.
perfectly.
And we're at almost 2 hours. You guys want to take a quick break because you're kind of at the end of this
that'd be
ring?
good.
Awesome.
Yeah, it
Should we
sounds
take
good.
take like 10?
Yeah,
that'd be good,
Or,
thanks.
sounds good.
Okay, cool. I'm back at 4. Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right. Good deal. right.
Hi.
Everybody doing okay?
Good. Thanks.
Good. Cool. All right. So we're still kind of at the end of ring 3 here, and you've all looked at that traveler's log, which was eerily kind of echoing all the signs that you'd seen and your own journey in some ways. Is there anything else that you all do before you proceed further on? Any like individual preparations you make?
I think I'm going to leave something on the ledge altar.
Okay.
A bracelet.
Cool. Next to that other piece of jewelry.
Yep.
Yeah, makes sense. Nice. So from the top of the ledge that you're on, you can see the staircase continues, and it starts to basically curve into the spire itself now. So similar to the way this alcove was carved, the steps now form this very kind of narrow tunnel that starts to go into it and upward. So you're sheltered now from the the outside wind a little bit more. It's kind of like this whole stone structure is more and more hollowed out. So I'm picturing like a staircase that goes up, and there's like still like big open windows on the side, but it's kind of like this semi-open staircase that continues up, carved into the stone. A lot of it looks like if this was carved by hand, it's been so long ago that it almost looks like it's just grown that way, especially with the lichen and mosses and vines growing on it. You see it's at one point like a big sloth that's its fur is green, like it's got moss growing on it, very slowly kind of hooking and clambering downwards actually on the side. I guess they would kind of go backwards, but very slowly climbing its way down and kind of gazes at you all for a moment. And again, life continuing all around this thing. Who goes first? Is there any order you make the way up?
I think I'm going to hang back.
Yeah. Go on, Vero.
I think I will probably go first.
Yeah, okay. That's what I was thinking. You seem like the proactive of the bunch.
Yeah. How are each of your characters with that? So you've each.
Or actually, one thing I almost see Vero as. It's almost like she's like we're just following her in a way. Like, she's vaguely aware of us, and we're just like following in her footsteps.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm just a little more focused than they are.
They're a little bit, up in the clouds, but you all are too. So, yeah. Yeah. As you all are kind of embarking, making your way out of this cavern, you've each had some kind of condition. Some of you very recently it started. Just describe that for a moment. Like, what's going on with that? How does your character feel about it, having noticed it? I can recap those too if that's helpful.
Yeah, that's okay. So I was finding it hard to focus because of the wind song being constant, and I'm feeling like it was directed at me as well. So he's trying to remain stoic through this and just keep putting one foot after the other, but getting increasingly frustrated by this.
Yeah, I'd say Nima, she, she's had this winding journey, and her interactions with the spirit realm have always been fraught, right? She got involved in that cult, and now she wants to atone for things. And so she sees the talons and thinks of her blood, and like she knows she's changing, and she's just trying to put her thoughts into her faith that she's on the right path.
but like she's it's a very trying time for her. So she is more like self-conscious, more jumpy. You know what I mean? A little more reactive. Yeah.
Stop me if I'm not understanding my burden correctly.
Sure.
But I am slightly resentful of the other people in the party. I think it would be going better without them. But I'm also sort of just feeling weighed down by this self-imposed mission that I'm on. Like I'm tired in a way that I hadn't been before.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and so kind of out of character and stuff, I have this list of conditions, which all sound cool on paper, and then I'm trying to make it make sense to the fiction. So I think where I was trying to go with that too is like, same thing with the dreams. I got some weird dreams that players have, but I was thinking that part of that dream was basically like everything being burned away. So maybe that's the connection, is like there's too many people climbing this thing, too much gear. You're trying to shed extra stuff. Or however you interpret that.
The dream made me feel light inside, and I want to feel that like purified, cool. And I want to get back to that, and I can't.
Nice. Yeah. Or at least not yet. You got a ways to climb. Cool. Yeah. So these stairs, you all notice on the walls as you're kind of inching your way up, because again, the stairs are narrow, like tons and tons of labor, perhaps like generations of these monks working on this structure to carve these steps. Just painstaking work. But in the same way you notice in that cavern, there were those sort of painted drawings. Those continue on the wall in front of you. And because you're kind of going so slowly, you definitely have time to sort of take them all in. And you'll notice over time as you keep climbing your way up that they're becoming a little more detailed, and almost like below it was a little more like prehistoric, or just kind of drawn in charcoal or something, burned into the wall. Here they're occasionally carved, like a little more like craftsmanship went into it. And similar themes, pilgrims, angels or partial bird people, different treasures being carried up, different like trees, mountains, just everything to do with height and wind and the elements. And it becomes increasingly narrow, and you start to feel like you're almost having to kind of scrape yourself against the stone walls to make your way through. But as you're making your way up, you all start to hear, it's a weird sensation. You're scraping, your gear scraping against the stone, and then you hear like rumbling, scraping from like way down, like the stone itself has that sound, kind of like that Colossus you saw at the bottom. And it sounds like something is starting to climb or claw at the stone in different places. You can't tell if it's that Colossus, if it's one thing, if it's multiple things, but you all definitely start to hear the sound of something or things below you climbing their way up. Occasionally some of those vines that are hanging on the side just kind of just pull and fall off, leaving a little bit more of a gap in the sky. What do you all do about this?
I guess I stick my head out one of the windows and look down. Do I see anything down there? Or?
Yeah, one thing you definitely see right away is, I might be getting my dreams mixed up. No, you had the dream about the birds, right?
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
You see one of those huge leathery, almost like a prehistoric bird that was pursuing you in your dream. It's there, and its wings aren't open; they're kind of folded, but the edges of its wings are claws, and it's scrabbling at the stone, trying to find purchase. It's kind of clumsy. You could tell this thing is much faster if it was flying, in your dream. But it's clawing up after you, and its big beak is trying to like pull away bits of vines. And you look down, and it seems to notice you and continue climbing upward.
Okay. Yeah, I immediately jump away and like press myself against the wall, on the inside of the hallway, and I'm like, it's upon us. It's coming. We have to hurry.
What it?
The thing from my dreams. It's chasing all of us. It's trying to keep us from ascending.
I will look outside too.
Yeah, I'll pull out that little dagger that I used to cut my palm earlier on. Not that it'll do much good. And go to the window.
Okay. Yeah, so both Vero and Elysios, you look over, you don't know what she meant by in her dreams necessarily, but you do see you see this. It's almost like it's made out of shadow and storm clouds and like weird, just dark, like leathery. It's a bird, then it's a reptile. Maybe it's some sort of dragon-like creature. Out of character, it's kind of like a pterodactyl, big old prehistoric bird that might not exist in this world, but it is clawing its way up the side, and it's almost like it's bringing that weather with it. You can see below, there's like, you're high enough now that you see like clouds that are, this might be stretching it, but it looks like you're above the clouds partially. There's more rainfall and storm and crackling dark clouds forming around this thing, and it's like bringing the storm up towards you.
That can't be anything good.
Are we protected here? Are we kind of able just to stay pressed against the wall and avoid this thing?
So it's not moving super fast, but there are gaps in the wall in this sort of side. So the staircase is carved into the stone, but there's sort of big arch windows that are open from time to time. So you could definitely kind of duck behind sort of a pillar, or you could keep climbing further up. But it's clear you can't go back the way you came. Yeah.
I suggest we continue to climb. I'm not interested in meeting that.
Yeah. I'm going to keep an eye out for one of those alcoves, though, just so that I can duck into if the need arises.
Yeah, Elisa, you do that. You're looking out for an alcove, and the thing that you're aware of again is that sensation of the wind kind of talking to you and making those sounds. Like it gets stronger, like it wafts up, like there's a rise in the volume, and then it falls again, and you kind of have the sensation of like going between the different pillars, and you feel like maybe this is a hint of whatever that song of the spire might be as it blows over different gaps in the stone, and you can tell, like, you think there's like a different tone ahead, like maybe there is another alcove you could climb into. But yeah, as you guys are all climbing up a little bit, you hear again more scrabbling, and you hear maybe like there's more than one. You see chunks of the vines a little further ahead just kind of break off of the side. And it's almost like the wind blows pieces of flowers and vines, and you hear thunder in the distance, like the storm is starting to arrive. How do you all respond to that?
Nima takes out some sort of a holy object, maybe some prayer beads or something, and she kind of is holding that and mumbling something to herself. And every now and then she looks out the window, but doesn't look down, but just like glances at the window. So she kind of like wants to look, but then knows, looking back slows you down. Just keep going forward.
One out of character thing I should mention: the rules of trophy. It explicitly says if you try to fight a monster, you'll die. So you can use rolls to like evade or outsmart or escape, but you just don't have the means to actually like fight the terrors that you come across. Yeah, just to make sure I'm being fair about that. Yeah, you know the struggle here is that the wind is just violent again. That storm is raging, and this thing is just this guttural, echoing cry coming up from below, like it's pursuing you further up. So you can't really go back down. But the way up, it's becoming more and more narrow, and you kind of have to still inch your way and press close and go single file. You notice again, even though it's very distracting with everything else going on, the carvings are becoming almost like colored paintings in the wall now. And there's like inlay of sort of gold and vermilion and bright flame colors. Again, showing those scenes of beasts and golden angels, and you feel like you're getting closer to the top of the temple as far as like the level of detail and the care that went into this. It's becoming more and more almost like that illuminated manuscripts, you know, in old books like that. So yeah, it's like that in the stonework in places. But whoever's first, Vero, if you're still at the head of the column, you see a little ways up, one of the little alcoves. There's another person standing there, actually kneeling there, kind of facing outside of the alcove, and like the wind's blowing her hair, and she's dressed in mostly white. Looks like a white dress, maybe a pilgrim of some kind, and is picking up things from her satchel and putting them on the alcove, and looks like maybe making some sort of offering, and then kind of looks out to the the blowing wind and the vines and everything. And for a moment, and you all see this at the same time as you look up, you see one of those creatures' claws come through on the sides of the alcove, and they're face to face for a second. And she goes to embrace it, and it just grabs her and carries her off into the sky. And you hear that louder cawing, and just that there's maybe more than one of these things still out there.
So we all see that.
Yeah. Yeah. Have each of you make a ruin roll at the site.
Okay. And is it gone now? Was it looking for her?
It's so you still hear the sounds, like maybe there's more than one that's below or around, but you saw one up ahead just take this pilgrim person. Yeah. That one seems to have flown away. 5. Okay. Does that bring you up? Okay, good.
Yeah, I got a 4. So that bumps me up.
Okay.
Yeah, and I got a 5.
Does that bring everybody up?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's fun. Okay, so just once you've updated it. Okay, so you're Elisa's at 5. Okay. So before I get into the conditions and ruin and stuff, just a thing to know about: when you hit 5 ruin, you can start making what are called reduction rolls, which I mentioned briefly before, which is you can try to reduce that ruin by acting in the interests of this place. So you can start to do things like destroy treasure, try to sabotage your fellow treasure hunters, prevent the use of rituals. You can do these things at any time, just kind of interrupt or say that that's what you want to do, and you'll try to roll below your ruin. The idea is that you're trying to like make it look like it wasn't you, like maybe it was just coincidence or an accident.
Okay.
Yep. So just let me know. Well, with the conditions, so I'll start with. So Nima, you've got those talons, you've got those claw marks, which like there was some gold or some shining coming from underneath it. You see this, this huge winged beast snatch away this pilgrim, and after everything you've thought about how maybe you're going to redeem yourself, maybe that's what it looks like. Maybe she was just offering herself. You don't know, but at the sight of this, you feel something shift within you a little more again, and you notice, in addition to those talons, you're starting to actually sprout tufts of golden, like downy feathers. Places like maybe you're changing just a little bit more.
And so by letting the creature grabbing her was part of the offering herself up? Or
it's open-ended. I was just thinking about the things that she's expressed so
right,
far.
exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
so
So
it's
that is a
unclear.
thought that goes through her mind, is maybe that's a way to go.
Maybe that's one way. Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's still shocking and disturbing enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see. I think the thing that happens for Eliseo with that wind, that sense that you can't turn your back, you might be just cast off into the sky. That wind, maddening wind blowing and stuff, and you see this sight, and it's just, you think that maybe there's something. It may be better if you could fly a little bit, and you start to actually feel a little bit light and almost giddy. Like that's the condition you get, is the feeling that like if you really believed you could fly, that maybe if you were out floating in the sky, you'd actually be okay. And again, these are conditions are, I'm telling you as a player in character, you kind of go where you want to with it. Yeah. And then Vero, I can find a thing for you too. I think you had the burden before. So I think one thing, seeing this site, even though that pilgrim was up ahead and got snatched away, and you've always been kind of forging on ahead first and kind of showing the initiative, you now feel very, your condition is that you feel uneasy unless you're perching above everyone. This sensation that if someone's above you, they might snatch you away too. So that's kind of your conditions. You need to be like perching above or ahead of everyone. Otherwise, something like that might happen to you, if that makes sense. Yeah, that sound is growing more and more intense. You hear like stone, that rumbling, like pieces of stone maybe are breaking off. Maybe more and more of these things are starting to pursue you all further up. And we're going to have to do one more, I think, basically a risk roll to the pathway is more and more narrow, and you're going to have to press your way through. You might even have to like let go of some of your possessions. It's almost like this wasn't completely carved, or maybe it was kept very narrow as like a final test of like, to pass through, you really have to, push yourself all the way through. Unless anyone has like a different way you want to try to make your way around it. You could basically press through this narrow passageway, or you could climb your way out and try to climb up on the side through the vines and on the surface of the rock.
So how high would you have to climb on the outside? Is it just to the next level, or is it as far as you need to, sort of thing?
Yeah, and I think so with the sort of illustrations and carvings and stuff becoming more and more detailed, and if you were to kind of look out, you can tell you're kind of at the last level before the very top. So you pretty much like one more climb on the outside or one more press through the stairway would probably get you there.
And we can't necessarily fit through the hallway, or
you can, yeah.
What's
you're just
like
gonna
the
have
cost?
To, potentially, losing some things or getting stuck or basically scraping it's just very, very narrow and difficult going. Yeah. So either way, or if you have another kind of use of ritual or solution you want to try to do.
I think I'm not yet ready to abandon the stairs, so
okay.
I'm going to keep pursuing that avenue.
Okay.
I travel pretty light, so I probably could fit, but I think given the last ruin roll, I think I might try the vines, because if I fall, it might be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Nima, in her mind, she's like, okay, the creatures are on the outside. I'm turning into something. It's time for me to. She feels herself. This is where the true pilgrim goes, is on the outside. Like, this stairway is for those that are on a different path.
Nice. Cool. Well, let's do Vero's first, and then we'll get to the other two.
I'm slightly uncomfortable by the idea they might be faster than me, but still think that I am going to be. This is the way that keeps anyone from being above me.
Right. So the risk here is that either you might get injured in squeezing through this like rough stone, or you might get stuck, and that whatever's coming up might get to you. That's kind of why it's a roll, basically. So any skills that would work for this?
Let me. I don't think so.
Let's see, forensics, herb surgery, lore. That's tough. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like lore is the most open-ended one. If there's something that
I remember a story about having to go through tight places to get to. Like, there's a lot of mythology in my order about going through tight places to get to the end of wherever you need to go. So I have faith that I will squeeze through.
Mm-hmm. Are there any something I remember reading once about like in that faith is it that either like you will change or the place will change or something? Like what gives you confidence that you'll get through? Like what happened in those stories, I guess.
That you are changed, that the narrowness of the place or the tightness of the place changes you in some essential way.
Cool. Like that. Yeah, so we'll do one for lore, and then any devil's bargains at the table.
Maybe the passage closes behind her.
Ooh, that's cool. I like that. If you don't like that, we can come up with something else.
No, I'm happy to take that devil's bargain.
I mean, I'm sure Vero's very happy too. I mean, if they can't actually change their mind and follow you. So 2 light dice, and you can do those and then decide to add more dark dice, or you can add them if you want to. If you want to add a dark dice to risk your body and mind to succeed.
Nope.
Okay.
I rolled a 6 and a 4.
Wow, nice. Okay. So a 6, yeah, perfect success. So you just describe what that looks like.
I end up a little skinned. My clothes are a little torn. I probably have like an abrasion or 2 on my forearms or something, and there's definitely like a couple moments of serious doubt of whether or not like this is where I end up pinned between these two, pinned in this passageway.
Mm-hmm.
No one ever knowing where I ended up, but eventually I wriggle through.
And it's like a final push where like you're not really sure how, and you just almost like putting your hands in there, like, all right, like just faithfully pushing through, and like the stone shifts, and it's almost like the walls open in front of you, and it just closes behind you. Like somehow
there was a hinge.
There was a hinge, or your faith or whatever it may have been, but it's that
my faith provided the hinge.
Yeah, there you go. Something unlocks and it closes behind you. And the passage starts to get wider, and you see open sky above you. And we'll come back to Vero in a second. So Eliseo.
Yeah, I'm wondering about for a ruin reduction. Does it need to be something that potentially harms the party, or I'm wondering about the satchel that he's carrying with objects from his homeland and those little shards of armor and things. If I was to before I start climbing, if I was to kind of symbolically toss that away and get rid of all my abilities, essentially, would that be enough to kind of ease this?
Interesting. Yeah. So you mean like? Do you mean like you'd be giving up an ability somehow?
Well,
Your
yeah,
character.
because the sort of soothsayer kind of career, if he throws away the bag with all his accoutrements in it and sort of gives up that path, is that maybe a way to save himself?
Yeah, it sounds interesting. Do you think it's like the materials that you would need to like look for omens? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not. It doesn't have to be that like mechanically would prevent you from using skills or anything like that. But that sounds interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and do you just kind of, how do you leave it? Do you throw it out? Do you like put it behind in a certain way?
So I'll go right to the edge, hold it out like I'm dropping a pebble, say goodbye to it, let it fall. And as I do so, in my other hand, take the vine and just swing out onto thin air and start climbing up.
Cool. Let's do a reduction roll first.
Okay.
So just roll 1d6, and you want to roll below your ruin. Make sure I'm getting that right.
It's 5. It didn't work.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, man. Okay.
Oh, well.
So only if it's below, it's not equal to.
Yeah.
So maybe it wasn't quite enough. Maybe that's the thing.
Yeah.
Maybe more extreme things are needed. But again, at any point, interrupt me if you want to do that. If it,
yeah,
you can always try. For climbing on the vines, let's get to that as a risk roll. Okay. So think of skills. You have omen, sacrifice, rituals,
solitude.
However you want to interpret it, yeah.
Well, I suppose you could interpret solitude as I'm used to surviving in the wilderness, so maybe he feels confident in being able to climb.
Yeah, it's just you and your own ability. You're not requiring anyone else.
Okay,
that works. Any devil's bargains for climbing up the vines on the side?
Yeah, I might.
I mean, also it's a risk roll. Things that could go wrong, you fall off into the sky and die.
Yeah, and I can't. I'm not able to take a dark dice if this goes wrong. So yeah, I'll need a devil's bargain.
I mean, could those creatures speed up? Right? Maybe they were quicker than we realized.
Yep.
That's good. I'll take that.
And as far as devil's bargains, so that's like success or failure. So it could be that is what you're saying, like they catch up to Eliseo.
Yeah, they get to our level. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I'll take that. So that's 2d6 then, one for the skill and one for the devil's bargain.
Yep.
And it's gotta say, oh no, it changed. It changed at the last second. The highest is a 5.
You can take the 5, or you can add a dark dice and reroll everything if you want to try and get a 6.
Oh, no, I'll take the 5.
So you do describe your success, and I'll get to the complication. So what does that look like?
So he loses the bag, expects to swing out gracefully and almost float up. And of course, it doesn't happen. In fact, he actually slips back a little bit because his hands are sweaty and bleeding. And then he sees this thing below him, this kind of storm cloud, and then starts scrambling. And I think he's kind of losing it here because he's gone from being very kind of poised and almost nonchalant to becoming quite desperate to scramble up to the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like we said, those creatures do catch up, and you realize as they're catching up to you, it's weird. It's kind of like at the same time they are these big monstrous leathery birds, and they are like this crackling, just roaring storm. They're almost like made out of it, and it just seems like they're consuming and just wrecking everything that they touch. It's almost like the vengeance of the elements, just like protecting this place. And you see as they make their way up below you, they're just thrashing and tearing off pieces of vine. At one point, it's almost like a little bit of a lightning bolt strikes the side of the spire. I think the complication is that you're up ahead of them and they're kind of rushing up. And again, going with that wind theme, you do climb up and swing up, and the wind almost catches you. Like this little burst of wind kind of blows you up, and you do make it up over the side, but for a moment you're just completely out of control. You're just kind of floating in the air. And for a moment you wonder if everything you were dreaming about and that sensation is now about to happen. But you're basically just kind of just knocked sprawling on the top of the open sky, and we'll get to that in a second. So it's going to be tricky to sort of regain your balance, I guess, when we get back to that. So Nima, what's your approach? Are you going after Eliseo? Did you kind of see?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's going up, and the way she thinks about it is this is the path that those things might seem terrifying, but this is part of the atonement, in that some things that look terrifying can look terrifying from the wrong view. That these things that are chasing her is her, maybe her, like, her karma. This is the bad actions that she's done in the past are catching up. And so there's no way to get around that. And that this is part of her path is to deal with this. Right. So she's just kind of putting in her mind is that's just there. They're always going to be there. You can't run from them. Just climb. Cool. And so that's what she's thinking. That's the only thing I can think of is her faith. She's putting her faith into that climbing on the outside of this spire is the right thing to do. And she's trying to focus herself with that. I don't know if that's worthy of expertise or whatever.
No, I think that makes sense. I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, things could go wrong. You completely lose your balance, fall out into the sky, or those things are catching up. You might be caught by them in some way.
And she also looks at her belly or whatever's changing.
Oh, like the feathers kind of throughout your skin. I'm thinking like whatever is visible. Whether you have like a sleeve or even just your arms. It's like downy feathers are starting to sprout from the edges.
Right. And so she wonders if, if I she thinks that maybe I can fly, right? Maybe this is, you never know you're going to fly if you don't try, kind of thing.
Any devil's bargains for this moment?
Let me think. Those bargains. She.
So just because I don't know if I've explained it well, you can always suggest them, but it is meant for the rest of the table
yes,
too. So
of course.
Don't feel like you have to come up with it either.
Yeah.
But whoever has any ideas.
Yeah, I'll see what other people say. Yeah.
So we've got you, as far as what you're physically doing, you're grabbing onto the vines and climbing your way up. And from before, they after Eliseo's climb, they did basically catch up to that level. So I feel like devil's bargain I have is that they're going to catch up to you either way. You'll find out if what you have faith in is true or not.
I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
Anything else, or let me think.
I think you're muted, Kim.
That this, like, even if the birds don't catch up, or bird-like things, the storm itself does. Like the storm is slightly in front of them and catches up to you, even if they don't, making everything slipperier and harder to climb.
Well, that's good too.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, so I'm going to do the 2 white and 1 dark. So I'm going to put the ruin die in there.
For the ruin one, for risking you're risking yourself.
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's see. Let me see. Make sure it's
Actually, if you want to,
okay.
mine that might not be refreshed. You can always delete extra dice that are on there. If it
Okay.
clears
Yeah,
it
no,
for you.
it refreshed. So the highest is a 5, and that's a light die.
Okay. So you can accept that, or you can add another dark die if you want to try and get a
Nope,
6.
that's good.
Okay. Yeah, I think. So yeah, what does that look like for the success? First of all.
Okay, so I guess they do catch up with her, and so she's kind of thinking like, look, you've been running away from everything. You can't run away. Part of atonement is not running away from things anymore. And so she thinks of this as like the final, I'm thinking of some pilgrimages where people like finish them like walking on their knees, right? So this is the up in the ante. And so she's climbing, and we'll say that those things like get up to her, maybe she feels it beneath her, but she just doesn't look back. She keeps climbing. And so I'll even say she gets to the top and she's pulling herself over the edge. And does one of those things capture her in the mouth? I don't know, right? Do one of the things grab her? Is she caught?
That's where I was going with it too. Is that
Yeah.
they do catch up with you, so you do succeeding in making your way up, but it's almost like the last little bit. So you're like seeing your talon hands grabbing the vines, and then it's almost like these other talons come up and wrap around your body, and you at the same time, and you're like lifted up the rest of the way, and you have that rush of the wind, almost buffeting you like there's big pairs of wings at the same time, and you're just hurled over the top. The last little bit kind of pushed.
But they get themselves around me. You said those talons, so I feel them. I feel them hold on to me.
Yeah.
Are they still holding on to me when I get over?
Yeah. Actually, I think you're bodily carried up over the top, and I think that your companions do see this too. At this point, you're all at the top. Lisa, you were kind of hurled up by this storm and kind of thrown down. As you're starting to get up, you see that mass of just shadow and claws and wings. And it's almost like seeing it up close, it's like several of these things just mashed together, and their form keeps sort of changing and shifting. Yeah. And they've got a hold of Nima, and they're carrying her up ahead of you. And you all see now that you're at the top of what looks like where the monastery is, the very top of the spire.
Okay, so they have me, but they're going somewhere else, and I'm with them.
Yeah. We're going to cut right back to that too. Basically, they're forcibly carrying you the rest of the way.
Gotcha. Okay,
up
cool.
To the top. Yeah. So let me skip ahead here to the end. So now we're in ring 5. This incursion isn't very long, so I'm realizing it is kind of moving quick. Maybe done a little earlier.
That's okay.
So you reach the top of the spire. It's open sky, and now you all see the just like in your dream, Vero, that outdoor structure, that gazebo, sort of different pillars forming this ring. At the very center, there's a big brazier, like big metal or stone bowl of some kind. Mm-hmm. In your dream, that's where the fire was coming from. There's no fire in it right now. But you see up on the top of these pillars, it's basically like a big nest of some kind. This big mass of woven like branches and vines and scraps of like other adventurers' gear. Like there's like a bent sword and a spear haft and pieces of armor and just all these things mashed together. And you're looking at it from the bottom. It just looks like a big nest up there. Standing on top of these pillars are those birds that you all saw before. They're huge, giant birds of prey and vultures, big owls and eagles. And in their talons are bones, and they're pecking at the bones, and there's fragments of bones below them that are all crushed. And you all hear them kind of cawing out to you these guttural words. You somehow understand them as speech, and they're almost mocking you all that you came here, that you're going to become other scraps of their feast, like all the other adventurers who came before. You see the bowl at the bottom. It looks like it's got dark stains in it, like maybe whether soot or blood or some kind of sacrifice was made there before. But these giant birds are basically calling out and implying that only the most worthy of you can make it to the very top, to the nest above. And Nima, as they say that, you're swept up and you're kind of dropped at their feet as well. And now you're all there. Yeah. And this is where it gets a little abstract and maybe player versus player. The structure of the game is pushing you towards, this big finale where maybe you turn on each other or do whatever. So this is where you kind of tell me what you want to do and we'll interpret it.
I'm almost intrigued by the idea that those things carried her up here. Is that is she not one of them, but is she kind of overtaken by them? Do you know what I mean? Maybe she thinks like, oh, they weren't chasing me, they were helping me. Right? And maybe she falls under their influence, the leathery creatures.
Yeah, I think here's what happens with that is they drop you kind of at the where your companions are onto this heap of like ashes and bone fragments and everything. And then they kind of just start to swirl around. So it's almost like that storm is now encircling the very top. It's howling, and Eliseo, this wind, it's maddening. It's almost taking over your senses completely. It's just surrounding you, and maybe this is that song. I don't know. But one thing for Nima, you do, you're sitting there, and I think the impression that you get is like you're like a fledgling bird, like you're just got those little tufts of down, and these are bigger than humans. These are monstrously huge birds, and they're all kind of looking down on you, and kind of maybe you're worthy, but maybe not yet. What else do I have here? What each of you do, let's do. Hold on a second here. Elisa, you're still at Ruin 5, so just remind me if you want to chime in at any point with that.
Yeah.
Or if there's anything you all immediately want to do, and then there's more to describe and more stuff, but just, I guess the broad thing too is you've all got to the top of here, and like there's no actual temple. Like the temple is the open sky with this weird nest thing and these pillars. Like for everything that was so ornate and illustrated on the way up, I guess that's a thing that's immediately apparent. Like maybe there's things above in this nest, but there's nothing apparently here for you except bones.
I think it's fairly obvious at this point that I'm not finding the book that I thought I came here to find. I'm not sure what that does to me emotionally. Like, I think that all of my forward impetus is just gone.
And I'm just hanging back, sizing up the scene, trying to figure out a way to destroy this. So I don't know, maybe there's some way that Vero and Eliseo could work together. I mean, Nima seems pretty at one with this whole situation.
I will say for Vero, though, as you kind of going along with what you just said, these birds are like they're making cawing and guttural like bird sounds and squawking and everything, but you do like understand words in your mind, like they are speaking to you. And I think one of them, this owl, does like crane its head and like lean towards you, and its like big owl eyes are meeting yours, and you just understand that it's saying to you like, I know what you came here for. Everything that everyone has sought and come here for is in that nest above, and you just have to make a worthy sacrifice to gain, the entrance to the final, the zenith of this temple. So it basically is, saying, trust me, if that's what you want, it's up there. And you see, all of you also do notice at this point, there's like a soft, like gleaming coming from between those branches. So along with those fragments of like adventuring gear and stuff, it's very much like that vision that Nima had of that explorer that had the gold underneath their flesh.
And in some way, is the nest above? Is it like above the storm? Like, does it look peaceful up there?
Yeah. It's like the storm is whipping around the whole perimeter.
Gotcha.
Here. Yeah.
What I'm thinking is, this is pretty nutty, but we have that brazier, or what would you call it? The bowl?
Yeah, the big bowl.
Brazier. Yeah, the brazier where there's the soot and stuff. And so Nima's thinking that this is, with the birds, that the phoenix rising from the ashes is the transformation that she needs to burn away all the old stuff. And
That's
so
cool.
I'm thinking that maybe she does like a ritual summon, like she tries to summon the phoenix.
Oh, cool.
Like she goes into the bowl and tries to summon the phoenix that can, she doesn't understand, but the next, to lift her up or to the next step in her journey.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Yeah, let's do a roll for that ritual. I think you have the skills for it, right?
I mean, wandering, faith, paths, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So how does this work again? I don't remember.
So it's a dark dice for doing a ritual,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can add a light dice for any of those skills.
Okay.
Sounds like faith again, maybe.
Okay, so a light and a dark.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go.
Devil's Bargains.
Oh yeah, we'll do that. Yeah.
First? Yeah, it's fine.
I don't know. Yeah, who? Yeah. What's the?
Oh, and just to make sure I'm laying out all the rules too. Alicia, one of the things you can do is try to interfere with rituals if you want to reduce.
Yeah, I'm working on that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm hoping that basically if the phoenix shows up, there'll be some flames that I can maybe knock the brazier over, something like that. I'm hoping that the nest is flammable, that there's some way I can do some damage to this.
Okay.
If I did that though, am I still able to keep climbing up? Is there a way up, or am I dependent on these birds?
So the pillars are actually, I forgot to mention this too. They're, compared to the stone so far, they're very smooth. It's almost like they've been polished, like marble columns. So they're like impossible to actually climb. So it's either going to be awakening something through whatever this ritual, like the sacrificial bull, or interacting with the birds or the wind, some other way of getting up there.
Yeah.
Than climbing. Yeah. And also the reduction roll, it's acting in the interest of the place. So it's not necessarily that you have to destroy other things. It's more like betraying the party or so however you interpret that.
Cool. And I have a question too, because Vero, she had things of burning away, right? A dream of burning away. I don't know if how she might interact with this.
Oh, like seeing Nima start to do this?
You're right. Does she, either she realizes what it does, it resonates during the ritual, or even afterwards, right?
Yeah. I think you're muted, Kim.
Sorry, the dog's being barky. I think that I know what I need to do, which is to burn myself, and so I am fairly unconcerned with whatever Nima's doing.
Nice.
Cool.
All right, we'll do the roll for Nima then.
All right, so what do I do? 2 white?
Devil's Bargain. I don't think we quite got that. If there's something that happens regardless, So for the ritual, I guess maybe to illustrate it better, you mentioned trying to summon the phoenix. Is that like you're lighting a fire in the bowl?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
thinking of she's like getting in there. I don't know about lighting herself on fire or,
Mhm. If you're lighting fire, one devil's bargain I would say is that it starts to catch that nest above.
okay, which sounds like Alicio's totally on board with that. So,
Yeah.
so it's 2 white and a dark.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me see if I get this. Okay, yeah. So it was a 4, and that's a light die.
Okay. So that is, success with a complication. If you want to add another dark die to reroll everything, you can, or you can take that result.
Yeah, well, we'll take that.
Okay.
Could I be the complication?
Ooh, that could, yeah. I like that.
Maybe, as the flames leap up, I kind of knock it over and try to burn the nest, something like that.
Yeah, so so the devil's bargain is that it does catch on there, but I guess that could be, you could try to encourage that more and do your reduction.
I'm trying to do some damage to these birds because they're the reason why I'm here. I'm trying to quiet this. Well, I find out what this song is, trying to quiet it now. So maybe aim to do some damage to the birds.
Yeah. So the thing is, they're kind of part of this place. So I think, basically you'd be acting in their interest to reduce your ruin, if that makes sense. You could do that anyway, just to do a different roll, maybe, if you want to.
So would extinguishing the fire or keeping the nest from catching fire be the thing?
Yeah.
I've got my own ritual though. It says awaken stones, trees, and water. I don't know if that would allow me to produce water. Like if I could mess with the ritual by putting it out.
Awaken. That's kind of
I
cool.
like that.
You've got a storm nearby. I'm sure you can chat with it.
If I was to like plead with the storm to put out the fire.
I like that. So let's we'll get to that in a second. I think the one part is that Nima did succeed as far as you were trying to like summon the spirit of the phoenix. So yeah, the complication is that it did catch the nest on fire, and we're gonna address that in a second. But yeah, what else? What do your companions see? What does a success look like?
I think she walks into the bowl, and there was soot there before, and so she feels like this is what the bowl was for, is the phoenix, and so she so she lights a fire, and I want to say maybe when she lights the fire, it's some sort of mystical fire, right? It's not like you don't know what it's burning. So she lights almost nothing, and it comes from the ash, and it surrounds her. So this mystical fire is around her, and she's calling forth the phoenix, and you see the phoenix come from the flames coming up, and then I would almost want to say, does she rise with the phoenix? Is the phoenix form around her, and then she rises up to the nest?
Yeah, I think I like that. We can come back to that too. Like you start to, that's what your ritual. Yeah, especially tying in with like those feathers that have started. You're starting to maybe transform a little bit. Yeah,
not maybe she doesn't get the nest, but she goes up. There's the bat creatures that are around. There's the big. There's the big things. I'd say the other characters too could interfere if they, you know what I mean? Who knows what happens? Yeah,
I think definitely with that ritual, it's like the phoenix comes up, especially because you're standing in there, and it's almost like you spread your arms out. Even though they're mostly human arms with little bits of down and feathers, it is like starting to lift you up towards it very slowly. And we'll see if you get there, but you do like lift off the ground slightly, going towards the nest. And the flames are starting to catch the edges of this nest. So Eliseo.
Okay. So then this is, I suppose, as that's happening, and I'm starting to cast this ritual and pulling all the water kind of round and around, I guess, out of the clouds, around myself, and then blasting at the phoenix with it.
Cool.
Okay. So is that just one dice?
So I think what we could do, we'll do the reduction roll because you're trying to do it, and then we can do it if you want to like do more with it, like with the ritual. I think that's how I'm interpreting it.
Okay, it's a 2.
Cool. So yeah, it'll reduce your ruin by 1, and then we'll do like the roll to kind of see what results, basically.
Yeah.
So as far as using the ritual is always risky, so it's going to be a dark dice.
Yeah.
I think other things that are risky in the situation are, I mean, it sounds like you're gathering elements of that storm towards you.
Yeah.
And especially with everything that's been happening with you already, I feel like I'm just putting things out there that could go wrong. It might pretty much grab you and take hold of you, and you might be caught up in the storm somehow or something like that.
I think you're right.
And you're trying to put out the flames or banish that phoenix.
Yeah, basically just kind of blasting it with
negate that.
all the wood.
Yeah. Any skills related to that? Rituals. Yep.
Yeah.
Devil's bargains from anybody?
Could the birds get involved?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The birds could get involved. The bat. I think it's interesting. Are the birds and these leathery bat figures, or I'm calling them bats, but the leathery creatures, are they together? Right? Are they one of the same community, or are they, antagonistic? Seems like they're kind of both part of this place, right?
Yeah, it's almost like the ones below were either guarding or driving you up towards the top, and the ones at the top are kind of the final arbiters of this thing. Yeah.
So the birds could definitely, but your Licio is acting in the interest of this place, right? So that's interesting. Was the devil's bargain is just maybe more difficult for the characters, right? It doesn't necessarily isn't going to necessarily go against what Alicio is trying to do.
Yeah, and so we're sort of combining the roles, and it doesn't really say how to do it. I interpreted it as because your intention, you get to do the reduction roll. So that worked out, and then we just kind of see how it plays out.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of those other birds getting involved somehow. Like,
well, maybe they think it's unfair, that Nima has proven herself, and and they know that it's sabotage. So, maybe that they act as kind of arbiters in this situation and say, no, she does actually deserve this.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, interesting.
I've got a feeling I'm not going to make it to the top.
So is Alicio, what's his take on Nina? Is Nima like, is there like jealousy, envy, or?
Not envy. I think it's more the idea that he didn't want this place to be real. He didn't want any of this future. He was kind of just going to figure out what the problem was, and now he's in the company of people that are really benefiting from this place and being found to be worthy of it. So at this point, he's been pretty self-destructive, I think.
I see. So the more real it is, the more complicated it makes it for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the more Nima engages with it, you're like, no, I don't want to see that. This is not what I want to see. Yeah, gotcha.
So
cool.
He came here to find out what it was. Now he's found out what he was. He wants to destroy it, and I would imagine nobody else wants that.
So
I am like the thing that I want. The owl has told me it's up there in the nest. It's a flammable object, so I'm not super down with this whole Phoenix fire thing. But I also think that I have relatively low opinion of Nima's effectiveness at this point. And like, as long as she doesn't get in my way, I don't really care.
So you see Nima as just kind of she's like off the reservation, right? I don't, as far as you're concerned.
Let's not use that phrase. Let's go for off the rails.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Certainly.
Yeah. I'm noticing that you're changing, and I'm sort of abstractly curious about that, but you're mostly a little daft.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So so the devil's bargain part is that the birds will notice what your intentions. Is that right for Alicio?
I think so.
Did I get that? Okay, yeah. And you said that maybe then they will actually favor Nima or something.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So I suppose regardless of whether he's successful, they're still going to give Nima what she wants. Maybe.
Yep.
Okay.
So two light and one dark dice, and then also yeah.
So what is Alicio trying to do at this point?
To douse the phoenix with all the water he's gathered from the storm.
Okay.
All right. So sorry, two light and one dark. Okay. There we go. And it is 5 is the highest on the light dice.
All right. Do you want to take that success at a cost, or do you want to try to get a 6?
I'll set my rune back up to 5. No, I'll do success at a cost.
Okay. So yeah, first of all, that ritual, what does it look like?
So he's kind of pulling it out of the air, pointing his hand towards the storm, kind of splaying his fingers and reeling it into himself, and gradually getting faster and faster until he's surrounded by it, and then eventually pointing it directly at the phoenix. At the phoenix.
Nice. And your goal was to put out the flames and like disrupt. Yeah. So I think. So sort of combining things here, I think it does basically disrupt that ritual of the phoenix, kind of raising you up, but also drawing in what you mentioned about the birds. Is they see you doing this, and they saw this one ritual, made in that ritual bowl, which seems to be the thing to do, and then they saw Alicio disrupting that, and they kind of look. A few of them seem to turn. I'm picturing like this owl still maybe talking to Vero in the middle of this, but the other ones. See that happening, and as that phoenix spirit is kind of like blown away by the water, they swoop in and lift Nima up, and then actually start to like kind of continuing what happened already with those other birds, now carry her up over the edge of the nest. The complication, I think, is that as that storm is swirling around you, you lose control, and it also lifts you up off the ground, and you're like spinning almost like this little tornado. Yeah.
So I'm very much not down with this, but I don't know. Like, my character Vero is not okay with what's happening.
Yeah.
I still have that. I don't want anyone above me.
Yeah.
And like the birds were making me twitchy, but now that there are people above me, that's even worse.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to prevent what's happening from happening, or how to beat them there. I've apparently unplugged my computer. One moment.
Oh, sure.
And I think what was cool, you talked about Alicio like getting swept up, because that obviously ties into the dream he had, right?
Yeah.
Not getting swept off, but getting thrown into the air with the from the wind. So that's kind of cool.
I have one suggestion as far as Pharaoh for how you could get up there. I think this owl was kind of meeting eye to eye and just saying like, what you're looking for is there, but it kind of glances to your companions and implies like, people who come here have to really make the right sacrifice, have to really give something big enough in return. But it kind of does almost like hunch down an offer. If you prove yourself in some way, it might be willing to fly you up there. Kind of depends on how you.
And do I get any
it.
sense of what it prove myself means?
It looks down, so there's like bones of former adventurers and pilgrims, and there's pieces of their gear woven into this thing, and the implication is very strongly that kind of
it's murder time.
Yeah, the most fervent who are left to prove themselves, or the last one standing, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have no hope. I'm at the top of the tower, and I have this ritual to bind people in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that I would like to try to bind Nima, or to halt Nima's ascent in some way.
Cool. It works. So let's look at your dice pool. So herb surgery and lore. What could go wrong with this? I mean, doing rituals are dangerous in general, but anything else? I guess you could be seen as this action could be seen as like not enough. I don't know.
Right. The owl could either disapprove or be indifferent.
Yeah, sure.
But depending on how literal an interpretation of bind it is and where Nima is, maybe I can just climb Nima.
Yeah.
Okay, talk me through rolling, or is this describing?
So rolling. So we'll add a dark dice for the ritual, and then any light dice for any skills you have.
Okay, so I have.
And if there's a way that you think this ritual looks or things involved in it, we could use that to tie into maybe some of the other skills you have. If it gives us a better picture of it, I don't know. I'm more into that than just saying like, oh well, you don't have the skills.
Right. I want to say that like somehow my understanding of the human body helps, or my understanding of bodies helps me bind people.
Mm-hmm. You know where the nerves are to pinch or something like that?
Oh yeah. That's like it's almost a paralyzing thing.
Yeah. Let's say that.
Interesting.
So I think that is either for surgery, probably.
Okay. Yeah. Devil's Bargains. Any suggestions for this one? I think. The one I have is that success or failure, Alicio will be blown up to the top.
Yeah, that's good.
It's like you might slow down Nima, but not both your companions.
Yeah.
So if you want that, it's 2 light dice and 1 dark dice.
And so Vero her motivation is she wants to be first. She wants to be the first one up there. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And I have the condition where it's not okay if people are like above or in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is mostly a visualization ritual. Like, it doesn't have a lot of material components, or doesn't look like much outside.
Mm-hmm.
I just go very still for a second. Let's see. I don't. No, you know what? I'll take the devil's bargain. So that leaves me rolling what? I'm sorry?
2 light dice and 1 dark dice. It is always optional. You can always roll and then see what you get and add another dark dice if you want to keep trying to add more dice. It's just riskier in a different way.
Okay, 5 on the dark, 4 on the light.
Right. So you succeed at a cost, but also because it's a 5 on the dark dice, your ruin goes up. Let's start with the success though. So you do paralyze, bind Nima. Even though you might not appear to be doing a lot, what does it look like as Nima's bound?
So Nima is still, I forget, is Nima in the grasp of the phoenix, or is Nima in the grasp of a bird?
Of the birds, yeah.
Okay. So the bird carrying Nima sort of pauses and like flaps its wings a second and then just lets go of Nima.
Oh, okay.
And, like there's some sort of resistance to carrying Nima further, and the bird is insufficiently committed to carrying Nima. So Nima is, let's say, frozen in midair.
Oh, that's cool. I have a condition with the ruin. If you tell me if it works for you, we can do it too. But it's related to something that's been happening in this nest. These different rituals and energies are going on around it, and the storm is raging around it. That little bit of light that's been kind of peeking through, this unearthly golden light coming from between those branches. The condition is that something speaks to you from inside that nest. It's bright and wondrous and terrifying all at the same time. And you realize that there's much more than that book in there. Whatever you hope to find in that book is just a fragment of the sort of knowledge and enlightenment that's available in there. And you realize it's these feathery golden wings start to unfold from inside that nest, and there's this angel. It's almost like one of those birds. It's like all the drawings that have been depicted. It's the most gorgeous thing, but also the most terrifying thing you've ever seen. And it's speaking to you now and just saying, just come to me. And
Oh, I'm totally down with that condition.
Yeah. So that's whatever you hoped to do before, that's out the window now. This is like that and everything more. So that becomes your drive, basically. Is to come to this angel who's inviting you. Again, that's very open-ended, however you want to interpret that. But basically, yeah, called by this angel somehow of sacrifice and things. So Nima's caught in midair for the time being. We'll still want the players to be able to figure out how to do stuff. But as far as your ascent, it's been paused in the middle. Alicio, the wind has. You're not even maybe aware yet that you're going over the top of the nest because you're just kind of being swirled, out of control for the moment.
And I'm thinking for the time being, Nina is still in some sort of trance. You know what I mean?
Okay.
The ritual put her in some sort of trance, and then she just kind of frozen there in a trance for the time being.
Yeah, and I mean, so the
Not that she
ritual
couldn't. Oh, go on.
Go ahead. I'd say the ritual that she'd started was negated by Alicio's ritual, so that's no longer there. But you could say the after effects if you want. You're still kind of floating there.
Right. Or yeah, she might wake up later, but at this time,
Yeah. Actually, what I'm picturing too that I like is maybe some of your clothing is caught in that nest. So it's not that like you were just dropped, but you weren't able to be pulled up any further.
I'm hanging. I'm stuck. Right. I'm hanging there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I'd say she's awake. Maybe
Mhm.
confused, but hanging, and she can't like reach anything. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool.
And the thing that you do notice, even if you're still in that kind of in between state or hanging on there, is just that gold emanating, this unearthly light shining through those branches. And again, it reminds you of that flesh and that weird vision you had from before. Elisio, yeah, what are you doing? You're caught in that wind a little bit. I will say now you can see the edge of the nest, and you do see you can't tell the details. I'm gonna go with that. With Vero's condition, she can see the angel specifically for what it is. For you, it's just this mass of golden light, and it's like its form is maybe a bunch of feathers that you can't really quite understand it.
I'm actually thinking about the last condition I had, which was the belief that if I really needed to, I could possibly fly. So I'm thinking like whether, for good or ill, he basically lunges and tries to throw himself out of the kind of typhoon, as if like he's launching himself off into the air. And whether he flies or not, I don't know.
Cool. Like outward off of the spire.
Yeah.
Or okay. Yeah. And again, this is like
just take flight and land safely.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And again, this is like Ring 5 where it all just kind of gets crazy. So like if you're like, this is how I want my character to go out, you can always just do that if you think it's appropriate, or we can try to, I always want to like make sure we're giving like player choices and agency for like, if you want to try to do cool things, we'll go with that level too.
I mean, how close would he be to getting to the top is the thing.
Oh, so I'm picturing that the winds carried him up enough to where you're above the edge of the nest now. You're just kind of caught in the current, so you can see the top of the nest, which is that golden light.
Yeah. I don't know if I need to roll for it, but I think maybe if he tries to launch himself in the hope that he can just fly himself down safely into it.
Okay.
But honestly, like he really doesn't want to do anything more than to destroy the whole thing. So I think he's going to end up in conflict with everybody at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I think I like that. So it would be some kind of risk roll. I'm thinking to do that, unless you have a different way you want to approach it. Yeah, and we'll come back to what Pharaoh and Nima are doing.
Okay. Possibly sacrifice, with himself being the sacrifice, I guess.
Are you hoping to? So you said you're hoping to basically tear everything down, or are you hoping to like learn what the ultimate thing is, the light is, or
I think no, he knows. Well, yeah, he doesn't know what's in the light. I don't think he cares at this point. He knows that whatever this thing is, it's real, and it's destroyed all the peace that he was looking for in life. So I think he wants to destroy it, especially because his companions are obviously finding some kind of solace in it, and he doesn't want them to kind of benefit from it whenever it's destroyed him. So yeah, I think I sort of see him as like launching himself into this.
What's like Elisio's emotional state?
Not great.
Ideal.
So I think he's gone from sort of seeking inner peace essentially to being disturbed and more disturbed, and realizing that there's something out there that he doesn't understand, and then finally realizing that he can't control it, and also he's not part of it. Other people are kind of favored by it, and he's not. So I think he's pretty self-destructive at this point.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So maybe with like throwing himself into it, he might just kind of collide or damage it or disrupt.
Yeah, he's physical, using himself almost as the boulder.
Actually, I think I might want to come back to that, because we could either narratively go with that, or we could roll for it. But I think I kind of want to see what the other characters are doing, because might have more to tie into it.
Yeah.
I like that. So Vero, you're still on the ground. You've disrupted
I've disrupted Nima.
Yeah. The owl is still there, just regarding you, kind of waiting to see what you want to do. But also the angel is beckoning to you there.
Do I see any way to rise?
So you could climb onto the owl to fly up there. You could. That'd be the one obvious thing that's there.
I wasn't sure
if
I'd appropriately impressed the owl or not, but.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I guess I'm open if there's if things that Vero thinks will work, we'll kind of go with that impulse and see what will happen. If you have any other ideas.
No, I think that the owl.
Okay.
I was going to attempt to yank Nima out of the nest if that was within my grasp, but I like the owl idea better.
Yeah, it's still trying to get up above.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I think. So to get the owl to take you to the angel, I think it'll be some kind of roll to communicate or to navigate through that wind or something, maybe.
Okay.
I feel like there's still one more step in between getting there. So if that makes sense.
Yes.
Is there any lore about, so whether it's before you came to this place or you're just skill in lore and looking at all these paintings and drawings and hieroglyphs on the way, anything to do with owls particularly? Or angels or any of this things that have been happening? I was just trying to think of how to tie your skills into.
Right. I think that I know that blood is involved somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure how, but in my fervor, I decide that cutting myself and bleeding is what the owl needs as payment.
Makes sense. So maybe that's the kind of thing that it gets a taste of your blood or something, and then it lets you climb on its back.
Yes.
Okay. So use
I'm
that
not
skill.
actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't know very much about owls.
Yep.
No, owls are predators. I'm going to say the owl has to bite me.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's something I would roll for?
I was just trying to think of how to tie in skills. So knowing that. Yeah,
I've seen pictures.
Okay.
I paid attention to the hieroglyphs, and since the very beginning, at the super crude level, I couldn't figure out what the person was offering the owl. But as we've ascended, I've realized that the person is offering the owl themselves.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it sounds like, if I'm putting it together right, because this is pretty abstract. I think you're basically trying to make another offering of some kind for it to take you all the way up. It's willing to, if you're willing, kind of thing. And it seems like that's what you're offering. Okay. Yeah, I like that. So yes, that would be a skill for the lore. I feel like we're getting close to where it might kind of be final rolls for everybody to kind of bring it to a culmination. So if you're okay with it, I'm thinking this would also be you're risking everything, really.
Yep.
You're offering your body. So add a dark dice for that. If there's any devil's bargains anyone wants to throw out there.
Maybe the bite causes a pretty serious wound, as well as giving her passage up to the top.
Yeah, maybe she's not aware of, like you were saying, how much the owl wants.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
I think at this point, like I'm willing to pay it. Whatever the owl wants.
Yeah, sure. So two light and one dark dice.
Four on the dark, 2s on the light.
All right. So, and that is equal to your rune, I think, or no, your rune
Nope, my
is
rune's
already
5.
5. Doesn't affect you. Okay. Yeah. So success at a cost, unless you want to try to get a higher result.
Nope, I'm good with success at a cost.
Okay. I think the cost. Well, so the devil's bargain is that it actually. You think maybe it just wants to taste your blood, but it really like its giant beak just bites down and like takes a full bite of your arm. The weird complication, I think, again, going with what the imagery we've seen so far, is like your flesh underneath is like golden. Like something about your journey has transformed you, and maybe even your passage before. Maybe something has been changing as you got to the top here, and you kind of realize like you're a part of this place now too, or something, as it takes that chunk out, and you climb onto its back, and it flaps its wings and starts to bring you towards the angel that only you can see, that's kind of holding its big wings open. And you realize that it's again like your dream, the feathers and the flames, it's all kind of the same. We'll come back to you in a second. So now we have Vero flying towards the angel, Eliseo up in the air, kind of being ready to fly down into everything. Yeah, and then Nima, what are you doing?
I had something popped in my mind. I don't know if this is thematically appropriate, but when Nima comes to, she sees all the leathery creatures flying around as angels. Like she has a different, she kind of sees the, perhaps the true reality of what's going on here. And I would say I picture her hanging from her clothes. And so then she starts to try to like climb up the clothes into the nest. And I think of her like looking at the light and kind of like weeping with joy kind of thing, looking upon it. And then as she crawls into it, so she's going to try to climb up into the nest.
Okay.
As far as you want me to go further than that, or
no? I think it sounds like that kind of last little thing too. You're trying to make your way. So each character is trying to either make their way to this final place or collide with it literally.
But I see her feeling maybe like when she comes to, she's at like some sort of like peace, right? Like she sees these leathery creatures not as evil, but as holy. And as she's climbing up, she has this sense of peace with her.
Cool.
Not that that's real or anything, right? Not trying to imply that she has a happy ending, but so I'd say she's thrown it all in there. So she's using her risking her mind and body to go up there.
Okay.
I mean, the devil's bargain. The only thing I can think of is, well, I don't know. Anyone have any ideas?
Maybe she has a realization about what is really going on.
That's interesting.
Right. Her single focus has been cracked. That she has a different. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
And even if she doesn't know what's going on, she's no longer quite so certain.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe she has some feelings that she felt when she was in the cult, and that causes some doubt in her mind. Yeah. Sure, let's do that. So, that's 2 light and 1 dark?
Yeah, if you've got a skill you're using, it sounds like think you covered those pretty well.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
It's probably like the last roll potentially anyway. So
all
it's just
right.
kind of when we start.
She got a 6 on the dark.
Awesome. So you do succeed. You're almost like climbing away up, but also maybe even clawing through the nest into that golden light, and you do make your way up to the top.
Is she more transformed as she claws? Like as she's clawing, maybe that's like actual bird hands, maybe, or like.
Yeah, I like that too, actually, because you do have one more condition there. I think that you're as you maybe start to touch that light, your transformation continues even more, and maybe as you literally emerge in the top of the nest, like you look down and it's like that dream, like you are that phoenix now. At this point I feel like everything's at such an extreme. I don't think we need to like, it's like, what's the worst that could happen? It's kind of already happening. So if you all would like to, you can we can go through and describe sort of how this concludes for your character. If you want me to fill in, I'll have ideas, but I'm happy to turn it over to what you think happens.
I kind of like the idea that maybe Nima fell into another cult, in quotes, that she's kind of been absorbed by these bird creatures, and she's like kind of turned into one of them. And maybe what she realizes, though, all this time she had some sort of mystical power that attracted other beings to her. And she's been kind of this, not a plaything, but they've wanted to, leverage her and get her into their orbit, so to speak. And so her drive to try to atone for a past action has thrown her into another one. But I think this realization actually gives her peace that it's not about her. There's bigger things.
And I know I'd sort of put Elisio's action on hold here. I think if what you think happens is that it does disrupt some of this stuff, I think we can definitely tie that into, because ultimately Nima's going to ascend to where she was going. Vero is going to meet this angel, and Elisio is going to, cast himself.
No, I think it's a drop in the ocean. I think that he has like visions of, careening into this thing and toppling it, and it falling from the top of the spire and crashing down. But really, he just falls into this light, and he can't see what it is. So it's just teeth and claws. So, and that's the end of him.
If he does see it at the end too, I mean, that's, I don't know, what do you think? Do you think it's just the light consumes him, or do you think like as he gets there with all his omens and stuff, he sees things?
Well, I would imagine it's more like almost like a real nest. There's like fledglings inside it, and they're all
that's cool.
Who are all changing, and he's their food essentially.
So that's cool.
I was kind of assuming the angel's going to eat me.
So Nima starts pecking away at Elisio along with the other.
Yeah, Vero. I mean, so it could be that, it could be both too, where like as you start to get close and like you feel the brush of those like an angel like feathers and talons or whatever, like this whole being is made out of just like knowledge and power and everything. It's almost like maybe you're meeting your drive and maybe you're being consumed at the same time. I don't know, what do you think happens?
I think that I realized that all of these birds were adventurers once, or climbers, pilgrims once, and that I like the ultimate knowledge is taking my place among this pantheon of weird birds. Possibly also being eaten, like it's a little metaphysically unclear what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, I can fill it in, but I don't want to like override what you want
No,
to do
please.
either, because I think ultimately there's sort of no going back from any of this. So I think it's sort of, I mean, each character is being transformed one way or the other, and I think it's kind of like, I think what happens is as you float up, the owl deposits Vero on the edge of the nest, and the angel wings are spread and it kind of brings Vero into this embrace, and it's like, again, it's beautiful, it's terrifying, and everything's just consumed in light. But I think it metaphorically and literally just dissolves Vero, and everything that Vero felt was like burdensome. It just like melted away, and you almost maybe turn into the ash. There's like your remainders are like floating away from the top into the wind, and you dissolve onto the nest. Yeah.
I like it.
And maybe far down in the valley, this like last epilogue moment, there's another group of adventurers looking towards the spire, and one of them, who might be following omens, thinks that they see a little bit of this like flame, this light from far away, and they think that's just like they read in their book, that there's light at the top of that temple, like we're following it, it's going the right way. And then they continue, another hopeful group of pilgrims.
Food for the mill.
Yes. Awesome. Thanks for playing, guys.
Well
Yeah,
done.
that's cool. I like that.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for playing. Anyone who ends up watching this video to the end, if you guys okay with posting it?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely check out the Gauntlet for this and many other cool games. Some really like experienced GMs, unlike myself, some other all kinds of different games, not necessarily horror games, but all sorts of indie games. It's a really great community there. You can learn a lot. So check it out. I'm going to end the broadcast, and then we're going to talk about Stars and Wishes for a second. So thanks for playing.